Fantastic. I will call the regularly scheduled select board meeting for the town of Middlebury, Vermont for Tuesday, July 28th, 2026 to order. The first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Moved.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I was assuming, Mark, that there was no additions or deletions in the last minute? No. Fantastic. And thank you for those of you on Zoom. Next up is the approval of the consent agenda. On this evening's consent agenda, we have minutes from the Select Board, Infrastructure Committee, and Planning Commission. We have no licenses. We have check warrants, as always, a note on the Policy Review Committee, and Town Manager's Report, including Ilsley Public Library, upcoming dates, and communication from Jeremy Rathbun.
I'll move.
Moved.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor of the consent? Any corrections?
Any corrections to the minutes?
Oh, yes. Yes, we have a correction. I have a correction to the minutes.
On which line?
On line
292.
On 292, my significant other was incorrectly referred to as David Hogan. His actual name is Daniel Houghton.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Credit where credit's due.
Absolutely. Any other notes? Fred?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Lines 192 and 193 in the minutes, I would recommend striking those since the next paragraph covers it in more detail from the direct source.
Did you actually say it, Fred?
Excuse me?
Did you actually say the thing that it says you said?
I don't have this open in front of me, only that I remember introducing the Infrastructure Committee had a meeting and heard directly from the wastewater staff, and then I gestured to Dean Rayoon, who came up to the table and spoke more specifically about what his opinions were.
Sure.
So my introduction is not necessary anyway. It's not a big deal.
I think we can strike it. Anything else from the consent agenda that we should discuss further or modify before we approve it? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please indicate. Aye.
Aye.
Very good. We got them all. All right. Somewhere I've got the list of things we're doing, but it's not right in front of me. What's going on? Pull up the minutes. That's what's going on. Next up is citizen comments. This is a time for anyone who would like to address the select board on a matter which is not on our agenda for this evening to come forward and talk to the select board. Is there anyone here for something which is not on the agenda? All right. Seeing none and moving right along, ahead of time for the moment. Item number 5 is the Public Health and Safety Committee regular update. Please join us, Laura.
We're safe. No. I mean, we know that there have been some events, but the Public Health and Safety Committee met last at the end of April and was scheduled to meet in July and didn't meet in July. So that made us wonder about the timing of when we meet quarterly and wondering going forward if maybe we change that to June rather than July. There were no extreme pressing issues that were handed to us from the select board, so we made the decision to cancel that. But just to remind you that typically we have this tickle list, and since we have many guests, just to inform you, that include looking at traffic calming concerns. So we now have a policy, for submitting a concern to our town manager, and then that gets vetted and handed to staff, and if it needs to come to the Public Health and Safety Committee for further vetting, it comes to us. But in most cases, they've been taken care of by staff. So thank you, staff. And there's always work to do around calming traffic, as we know, and we appreciate the work that is done by by our DPW to mark our crosswalks and improve our shoulders and do the work that they can. And we know that the roads are rough, and we're getting rough, boy, they are rough in many places, and we're getting to them as we can. And so that's traffic calming. We also look at our response to extreme weather events. And now that we're in summer, you can see already that, like last summer, when we experience extreme heat days, we try to open the pool for free and make sure that there are other public buildings that are open during core hours. The Park and Middlebury Rec Center is a little different in their hours over the summer because of the camps. So we reflect that in the looking for brochure, like the hours, and we adjust that when we have these extreme heat days. So I did ask if pets could be included, like for consideration, because on those extreme heat days, just to have access, and we haven't responded to that yet. But it's occurred to some of us that's important to people.
Sure.
Okay, so we're having some rain right now, but we haven't had any flooding events. We haven't had any fires, but but we're paying attention to our response to extreme weather events. And so lately, it's really been extreme heat that we're responding to. And as we head into the winter, again, we'll look at places to get warm. What else? Parking. So we look at how the winter parking ban was going. That was back in April. And we recognize that the parking ordinance needs to be updated to reflect street changes. And so I know that Chief Covey is looking into just presenting that to you at some point. So it's minor, but there's that. And it's also occurred to us during the appeal process for some of the tickets that residents or visitors don't know that they can't park over 2 hours in a zone. So we had some people that were asking for appeal because they had moved their car from one spot 2 spaces down to another spot within those 2 hours, and it doesn't work that way, because the whole idea is to turn over the parking places for the downtown businesses and others that are using the downtown during those core hours. So we'll be cleaning that up a little bit. We also noted that we don't have a public health officer filled in, that Andy, you're filling it by default.
We have a deputy.
We have a deputy, and that's Lauren Ogden, and it's great, and she's been given some direction, for filling that responsibility.
It would be lovely to have health officers.
Yeah.
That's not me. Yeah.
Yeah. So we looked at the membership and structure of the committee. I don't know if I reported this the last time, but we have a few at-large positions on the committee. I'm one of them, and we talked about there being good practice about rotating those terms. So we're going to begin to do that, in the next round, next year.
Are the non-at-large positions? I mean, obviously we've got our public safety chief. There's a porter. There's a college.
Yep.
What else is there that's kind of like a designated?
The school district has
Okay.
a rep. Yeah.
Fire.
And MREMs. Yep. So those are stakeholder positions.
Gotcha.
And staff. We have staff that are regularly attending. Is there anybody I'm missing, Mark? I don't think so. We also wanted to clarify the authority of the committee and establish a process or standard for the appeals process, especially for ticketing and towing, since the current ordinance allows for a final review to come to the Public Health and Safety Committee. So we clean that up in the language for the Public Health and Safety Committee. I think that's, Megan, I don't know. Oh, so we did present the Looking For brochure, which is our product, your product, that the town of Middlebury's library now produces with my help with updating, and it's a valuable tool that shows all the places you can go for different support. And the last time we updated it, we realized that there was no public phone, and we're glad to see that you're moving on that front, and we'll be able to include that happy news when it's available, like as another resource in our town. So that's good and exciting. And I have copies of the brochure to pass out to you, but they're posted everywhere, and you can get them at the library and most other places. All the agencies that are listed in there have it, and it does help inform them of each other's services. So thank you, staff, again, for helping with that.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Select Board, comments or questions for our Chair of the Public Safety Committee, Safety and Health Committee. Fred's got the radio on.
Oh, the encampment policy, I forgot to mention that. We are going to be addressing that later in the agenda, so I'm not bringing it up right now, but we will be. It's minor, but everything about it being a trauma-informed policy is in place still. We're just tightening up some of the time periods. So if you're not here to hear that, you'll catch up with that probably as it's reported in the minutes.
Very good. All right, I think that's all we've got for you. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Laura.
You're welcome.
All right, next up, item number 6, the public informational hearing for the Town of Middlebury CHIP application for Summit Properties and Stonecrop Meadows. Come on down.
The fun part of the night.
Here, read this summary.
I think,
Take it away.
yeah, sure.
And then you have the.
Yeah, no, I'll read the lovely summary that's been provided for me by town staff. The town has worked in recent months with the Addison County Economic Development Corporation and representatives from Summit Development to prepare a proposed town application to the state of Vermont's Community and Housing Infrastructure Program, also known as CHIP. If approved by the town and later accepted by the Vermont Economic Progress Council, VEPC, it would create a project-specific TIF, or tax increment financing, mechanism to assist in the funding of infrastructure associated with the future housing development at Stonecrop Meadows housing site on Seminary Street Extension. The town and Addison County Economic Development Corporation previously submitted an initial CHIP interest form to the state relating to this project earlier this year, presenting this evening. Notice for this required hearing was published in the July 10th Addison Independent newspaper. Fantastic, welcome guys.
Thank you.
I apparently have to open the hearing, thanks to Dan on my right hand. In accordance with the governing statutes associated with the State of Vermont CHIP program, the Select Board is conducting a public hearing to take questions and comments from the Middlebury community regarding a proposed town CHIP application to the State of Vermont. When we reach the time for public comment, if you are on Zoom, please raise your hand and we will get to you. And if you are in attendance, we will call you up to a microphone to give your comments. And with that, I will open the public hearing.
Thank you, Select Board members, for giving us time to present to you tonight. My name is Alex Armani Munn. I'm the Executive Director of the Addison County Economic Development Corporation. I'm going to provide just a very quick overview of TIF and CHIP and the process that we followed to arrive here at the public hearing tonight, and give just a very brief overview of what we're requesting tonight and what next steps will be following the public hearing tonight. And then I will hand it over to Summit Development to present more specific information on the project and the CHIP component. So a reminder to folks, TIF, tax increment financing, is a very common public financing tool that dedicates a portion of future property tax revenues to finance debt associated with infrastructure for, in this case, housing development. So it's important to remember that TIF is a tool and CHIP is a program. So CHIP, again, is the Community Housing Infrastructure Program implemented here in Vermont beginning in January 2026. I'm excited to say that we are on pace, the town of Middlebury, with their partner Summit Development, to be the first CHIP application in the state. So congratulations on that. But again, CHIP is a project-based TIF program. So again, rather than being district-wide, it applies to a specific project contained to either a single parcel or a collection of contiguous parcels. So the process that we took to get here, as folks may recall, you've seen my face a few times now. I was first here in April with town staff presenting an interest form for the project. That was submitted to VEPSI towards the end of April, basically telling them that the town of Middlebury had the intent to apply for CHIP in support of Stonecrop Meadows. So since that form was submitted throughout May and June, my organization, ACDC, has worked very closely with Summit Development as well as town staff to prepare the application that will be presented to you this evening. That culminated in a work session earlier in July that included Andy as well as Izzy. So we had a couple select board members there, and we spent 3 hours in this very room going deep into the weeds on CHIP and this specific application. We had the opportunity to have some more direct conversations with select board members. So my hope is that folks at this point have had the opportunity to meet with me and learn more about the project. But again, we will go deep into details this evening. So what exactly is being requested tonight? What we are asking for is a resolution to adopt the application and to dedicate a portion of those future increments to support the infrastructure for this project. So once that resolution is approved, if that is approved tonight, then Summit Development, myself, and town staff will work together to prepare that application for submittal to VEPSI. Prior to that application being formally submitted, it will be recorded here with the town clerk and will also undergo final review by the municipal attorney. Once that application is submitted, then VEPSI will first review it to ensure that it's complete. Once they verify that the application is complete, it will undergo a third-party review by an economist hired by VEPSI, and they will schedule a site visit where they will come out, visit the project site, visit with town staff, select board members, the developer, to have a more in-depth discussion around the components of the application. Once that site visit occurs, that'll start a 90-day clock for VEPSI to issue a decision, either an approval or a denial of the application. If the application is denied, they will provide in writing their reasoning for denying the application. One thing I will share, and I'll let Summit speak a little bit more to this, is there is some time sensitivity around the application and the need to submit before the end of the year. Again, they'll get into a little bit more of that, but we've been working very diligently, and credit to town staff for being a great partner in that process.
You need to approve by the end of the year. So to
Approve,
submit
sorry.
soon.
Yes, submit soon,
Yes.
start that 90-day clock, get approved by the end of the year. So last thing I'll share, again, I'm going to hand it over to Summit Development. They will be presenting to you tonight a housing development project, something I'm sure you've all heard a lot about, phase 2 of Summit Development. Alongside the housing, there's the housing infrastructure project, and then it's the infrastructure specifically that will be financed through CHIP. And then finally, we'll be discussing the housing infrastructure agreement that was included in the packet. That is essentially a contract between the town and the developer, outlining the expectations for the use of CHIP. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Summit Development. I'm going to take a seat, but I will be available to answer any procedural questions.
Don't go far.
Thanks, Al.
You had the
Thank
fun
you.
part there. Yeah, thank you. Are you able to pull up those slides? Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to walk through this part.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. I feel like we got very comfortable here 2-3 years ago, and it's been a little more sporadic now, but good to be back. And so maybe, I mean, this is probably the best place to start, is just sort of a refresher. And if you just want to go right to that second slide there.
Can you both
introduce
state the
yourselves.
names? So
Sorry, Zeke Davison, Summit Development.
And Tom Getz, Summit Development.
We're the developers of Stonecrop Meadows. Yes, so before we dive into CHIP, and as Alex said, we're sort of talking about phase 2 here, and that's what we're calling the CHIP housing development site. For those who've been by, what's outlined there in blue is what we've already developed, right? So that's 61 homes. I think everything is either under contract or occupied, other than a couple homes we're still reserving for Addison Housing Works and the Shared Equity Program as they work with buyers. But we broke ground in December of 2024 and had people living in the community within 10 months. And now here we are a year and a half, a little more than a year and a half later, and we've got about 55 families already living at Stonecrop Development, or at Stonecrop Meadows, excuse me. All electric community, the multifamily building there, which we got moved in, everybody moved in the month of June, is geothermal. All of the other homes are all electric heat pumps. And I think we've just been really pleased with how excited everybody is to live there. Tom and I have been doing all of the closings, and just seeing the happy faces on everybody as they move in has been really fun. We've had those classic moments where, after our first closing, there was a kid out on the community green kicking a soccer ball, and we're like, oh yeah, we've been in spreadsheets and meeting rooms and board meetings and seen it all on site plans. And when you first get those moments, those have been fun. For this conversation, I think one of the key points of everything in blue there is these are lived in, and with this first tax year starting in July 1st, these are all tax-paying units that have come online and are starting to pay their full tax rate this year. 61 homes financed through, as you all remember, through the hard work of a lot of people here in this room. I think I saw Fred Kenny, Alex's predecessor, on the Zoom call. All the applications we made with COVID era ARPA funds unlocked the construction of the infrastructure to support everything there in blue. And Kathleen Ramsey, Mark's predecessor, and now Mark and everybody in the zoning department, and Alex. So this is, it was a huge team effort to bring in all of the resources it took to build the infrastructure and build a new neighborhood to get to where we are today. The COVID era money is gone. We're looking forward to how we complete the build out here. And that's really what we're here to talk about today with Chip. So everything in the red bubble there, and actually I should have gone, let's go to the next slide just to see this in real life. This is a drone shot from, I think, early June. This is a better way to do this. As I said, so everything there in blue, occupied, lived in, and this is even a little stale, being almost 2 months old. But what we're talking about here is the CHIP housing development site, which is sort of one of those key things to be defined now as we go to the application for CHIP, which is the housing that once constructed, we will be using the increment from to serve the debt on a loan we'll take out now to build the infrastructure required to support all the additional lots and all the town infrastructure and everything that goes into that. So what we're talking about here is the potential for another 74 plus homes being built inside the red bubble there, and unlocking the potential for about another 70 homes that's not going to be included in the housing development site across the wetland that was originally part of our preliminary plat application, but we haven't gone to final plat for yet. So that's sort of the universe of what we're talking about. I think the biggest thing to stress for us now is to realize we've been working really methodically and really quickly to get through what we've gotten through so far. There really isn't any way to pay for the infrastructure, to complete the infrastructure through the housing development site without a program like CHIP right now. Like I said, what we did at first really hoarded a lot of the state's resources here in Middlebury, COVID era resources, because nobody's really building new neighborhoods outside of Chittenden County. This really is that one of the marquee projects that was recipient of a lot of that funding. We simply can't pass along the cost of building the infrastructure to home buyers and renters. The projects and the homes just are not, we can't even accomplish any level of affordability if we're passing along the cost of that. And obviously the town is not in a position to be able to put in $2 million of infrastructure that we can then build homes on top of. So programs like CHIP, the idea was this is how we can leverage future tax dollars to take out loans now to build the infrastructure we need now to be able to build the housing that that infrastructure supports. And so in a post-COVID era, there's really no other source. But CHIP is a potential lifesaver here in continuing the construction of this community. I think if you want to mark the last slide here, I think where Alex wanted me to go afterwards was sort of to talk about the infrastructure project. Back to the paper, sorry, no pretty images, would have gotten a little too complicated. What's in that blue solid line is what will become municipal owned infrastructure. And so this is a 60-foot right of way that includes sidewalks on both sides, curbed road, buried utilities, buried sewer. we'll be rebuilding one of the main water lines that runs from Foot Street up to the top of Chipman. Well, it runs from one of the wells over by the airport up to the Chipman Hill Reservoir. It runs through this site, I think built in the 60s or so. And so that will be put underneath the town right of way that is in the blocked blue there. So that component of that project is about a $2.25 million project just to build that future town-owned road, sidewalks, sewer, and water infrastructure. CHIP eligible uses are also to, you know, anything that serves a public good. So that central green, the village, the green space that was required as part of our permitting, some stormwater treatment, which you see up at the top of that on lot 19, and then also the bubble of blue on the left is to complete the circulation that was required for our permit to complete these homes for fire truck and ambulance and other emergency vehicle circulation through the community. So everything in this within that solid blue line is what's going to be town-owned infrastructure. Once we're able to do the full build out, and what's sort of bubbled in blue is what will be HOA owned infrastructure, all of which are eligible uses for CHIP, and so are included in what our CHIP uses would be. CHIP uses sounds a little funny, but it's really just uses that are eligible under the program for infrastructure construction. I see you, Andy, about to ask a question.
I've got
if you
some
want to
questions,
wait,
but I'm going to let
but-
other people go because I've got, I think, a pretty good understanding of the program
Yeah.
and mechanics of it.
Yep.
I just have one quick, you talked 2 million, then 2.25 million, what's the total infrastructure cost?
It's about $4 to $5 million to build out completely this site, and that's sort of CHIP eligible.
And that's phase 2.
Yeah, I mean, so yes, when we negotiated with the select board back in 22, 23, our original development agreement, we phased this.
There are like 4 phases.
We
back
had phase
then.
A,
Yeah.
B1, B2, C, D. Really, from that development agreement, most of what we have here is phase D that we're going to be building. Phase A, B1, B2, those were all financed with that original financing package that we put together back then. Yep. But so when Alex calls this phase 2, it really has become 2 components. We've built everything that we built with the financing we were able to secure in that original round of the sort of COVID era financing. And now, as we look to wanting to continue out, call it phase 2, that's what we're talking about here.
Okay.
Yep.
You've already built some of them.
No, not on the infrastructure side, not what you see there.
So the part of phase 2 is the ones on the right-hand side, the duplexes in the red?
Yeah, and so
Lot 10.
right. So if you think of
Okay.
the infrastructure project and the housing development site are 2 different concepts in this, right?
Okay.
The infrastructure
Yep.
project is what you're
Yes.
using the money to
Yes.
build,
I know.
and the development site is what is the homes from which you're
Right.
using the increment, right? And so the opportunity we have now is with getting an application this year
Yep.
in and approved, is you're locking in the assessed value
Yes.
as of April 1st this year,
Right.
And so lot 10 is really important. Those are under construction. Like if you go back a slide, you'll see
Right.
some of the foundations that are already in. But including that in the housing development site allows us to unlock the increment from those to build the infrastructure that's required to
I
build
understand.
the rest of
Got
them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I answer?
Of course, please.
I know we met, so, but just for the audience, can you explain what's in it for the town of Middlebury to participate in this, or for a taxpayer?
Yeah.
What's in it for them, and what is the total 20 years, right? So how much tax are we letting go in
Yeah.
20 years?
Great question. And there's sort of like short-term, medium, and long-term ways to think about that, right? I mean, I think we all understand that the only way to grow tax revenue for the town is to either raise taxes or grow the grand list, right? Add homes to the grand list or raise taxes on everybody that currently exists. I mean, we've been through a couple brutal budget years where we've had to see the realities of what it just means to raise taxes. There's really no, I think what's in it for the town, there's no other new neighborhood being developed. There's really no other, I mean, we haven't seen it in decades, meaningful, big opportunity for growth and to grow the grand list. And I think non-Chittenden County, Vermont is seeing that everywhere. This is really the only large-scale new neighborhood development happening outside of Chittenden County. And so it's the long-term benefit of, you know, if you look 20 plus years out, it's the long-term benefit of that growth in the grand list. In the interim, it's the increment, the piece that's retained from the increment. It's the economic activity in the community. What we're showing in order to, I think the number in the pro formas that the conservative pro formas that we're using to make the application, it's about $120,000 worth of retained municipal annual tax increment in order to service the debt that's sized to build the infrastructure we need to build.
Zeke, just a quick clarification. Is that once all of this is built to final value, that it's 120K?
Yeah.
So that's a few years out that we reach that point.
Correct. Okay. Correct. And again, I mean, the whole point of TIF is it's leveraging future tax dollars, right? It's saying we don't have this tax dollars now, and we'll never have them if this housing isn't built, right? But if we take a certain number of years of the tax value generated from those, and we use that to serve the debt to build the infrastructure required to build the homes, the long-term benefit, the medium-term benefit is huge. And I think we just don't really have a path forward on the back end of this lot without a way to build the infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, when we're here because the economics of building housing in rural Vermont don't work, especially a mixed income community like this. And we spent 3 years almost getting all the resources, the grants it took to do the first 61. And now we're here for CHIP because with this, this will be the resources that we project to unlock the next 74. So hopefully not as long and strenuous as a process as it was to unlock the first 61 units of housing.
And the red bubble is the one you're applying chips for, right?
Yeah.
What about the future?
In part.
Pardon me?
In part.
Yeah.
That's the area that the increment is calculated on,
Yeah.
but the blue area from the other slide, I think, is where the
Go back to
infrastructure is
those.
going in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
So that blue
Is that the
outline.
lot 21 and stuff?
Lot 21 is the wetland there. Lot 20 across the wetland that's not in the housing development site. We don't currently have a plan to build that, so we didn't want to include it in the housing development site because the housing development site is what you're using to calculate the increment. And so if we don't have a real project back there yet, we don't have a real estimate of an assessed value.
Right. No, the 70 plus that you are going to do in the future, right?
Yeah.
That one, does this chip application covers that or no?
That's to the left of the blue box on the top there. Yeah, right in there where,
Yeah.
where David is.
Right.
So the
That would
chip
be
is
an
not coming,
additional-
That could be a second chip application.
That's what my question is. Yeah, you want to come back again for that probably.
And 2 or 3
On the
years.
table.
If
2 or
CHIP's
3
still
years,
around,
4
and
years,
yeah.
5.
Yeah. And what I'll say is the bulk of the infrastructure development we have to do is what's in the blue box there. And that's what we're building for the town. We will dedicate to the town. The town will take over. It's rebuilding the town water main. It's building all the sewer and the road that the town is going to take over. And that, at the end of the day, is the bulk of what the expenses that we're trying to pay for with the chip increment. And it unlocks every lot on this site that isn't currently under construction.
Thank you.
What are the alternatives to using CHIP? Like, what was the plan before you realized that CHIP would work? How would you have done this? And are there alternatives? And what happens if you don't get the CHIP funding?
Right. There aren't a lot of great alternatives. I mean, the obvious alternative in development is you pass it along to the buyers, right? You just have to increase the cost of the homes and the rents by the allocable share of each unit that uses that infrastructure. That's how development has historically happened and how it happens in economies that can support that. That isn't true here. We can't pass along that cost. We couldn't in the first phase, which is why we got all that the state subsidy to build that infrastructure. There really isn't a lot of other good options right now. And there weren't before COVID and the ARPA, funding bailout, and that's why nothing was getting built before that either.
Right, but when we went to master plan the community, there was no feasible path to build out this second half, but this is what we do. We're affordable housing developers, so we continually apply for any available resources. We were able to get a $5 million grant from Senator Welch to make it so our goal was always this full community is fully mixed income. We accomplished that for the first half, and between the grant that we got from Senator Welch and CHIP, we think that is going to be enough to be able to have the second half also be mixed income, just like the first half was. But when we first went into financing or permitting of this entire site, those resources, we didn't actually think we'd be this far this fast.
Right.
So, yeah.
Interest rates dropping back to 3-4% would have a huge impact too, but that's not something we control.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fred, please. Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Fred, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Okay. On the slide that you have showing there, where it says Ledgmere Road within the blue, is that the area that on the next slide, or the aerial photograph is where the excavators are?
Just beyond that, no, not there. No, it's just sort of at the line between the dirt and the hayfield there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that area where those vehicles and construction trailers are, the water shutoffs and the catch basins and the things that one sees there, that's not in the blue box.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. On the slide, in the packet, there's a picture of the phase of the development of the blue area showing and following that are a bunch of tables with spreadsheets.
Yep.
I don't know the name of it, but in looking at this, looks on the second spreadsheet.
Fred, do you know the name of the document you're looking at?
$6.789 million number.
Fred, do you know which document you're looking at so we can play along at home?
Can you open that?
Is it the phasing plan, I think?
Okay.
Is what he's referencing? Yeah.
Phasing plan. Phasing plan. I think.
Right.
Is that 6G or, I don't know what that is.
It's not this one.
Well,
Yeah, I think he's talking about this page right there.
Right.
Okay.
yeah, that's the so if you scroll down to the second spreadsheet,
Yep.
next one down. Okay, there's a number in the lower right corner that says 6 million. No, go up one. Sorry.
6 million.
Next spreadsheet up, back up. Yeah. Nope.
6 million.
There you go. In the lower right corner of that is $6,789,000. That is the. Tell me what that number is. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I'll get to the caveats in a second. That is the aggregate 20-year total of the municipal. Let me just make sure it's the municipal number and not, yes.
That's
Oh no, of the combined, of the state and municipal tax value from the lots in the housing development site. There are, so that's every year. The bold numbers on the bottom are the total aggregate taxes, would be our conservative projection of the total aggregate taxes paid by the homes on these on the lots within the housing development site. This is prepared for.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that the caveat on this spreadsheet is this pro forma was created for the purpose of the VEPC application. VEPC doesn't allow us to escalate taxes. So this assumes the Middlebury tax rate is flat for the next 20 years and assumes that assessed values don't go up for the next 20 years. Obviously not true, but how we have to pro forma it for the purpose of the VEPC application.
Okay, that was a question. I'm glad VEPC has that confidence that we'll never have to raise taxes. So I found myself looking at, so what does this mean for one of the units? Pick lot 18 and, I don't know, unit number 4, for example. and you go over, and there's $124,537 on the right column. Is it, am I understanding it that, basically that's the amount of local taxes that would be used to finance that unit's share of the infrastructure?
This
Is that
spreadsheet
what
is
we're talking about?
this spreadsheet is purely what the tax burden is on the owner of the unit, right? And so the purpose of this spreadsheet is just to calculate what the total value is, assuming no escalation, over 20 years of everything we're going to build. So if you just go to that fourth column, post-development tax value, that based on similar units we've built and the town assessor's valuation and current tax rates, is the tax burden, municipal and state, of one of these homes. So the one you highlighted, a 2-bedroom, 1.5
7,000.
bath, tax burden for that homeowner is $7,326. Over 20 years, that home we're not projecting on lot 18 to be built for a few years. So starting in 2030 to 2046, their total taxes paid will be $124,537. So this sort of sets the baseline for what is the future tax value overall. We then take this and subtract what the original value was, knock off 15% that is retained, add a discount for people that have certain tax exemptions. But this is just the baseline table showing the 20-year tax liabilities for the owners of these homes.
And if this wasn't approved, this CHIP application, the only way you could finance and build that unit would be to add the 124,533 to its price somewhere. You could use that to finance things over this period. Is that?
Well, we would have to add, no, I mean, because this is just the baseline tax value of that home, the increment of which, so a portion of which will be used to serve debt that we take out now. The only other way to pay off that debt that we take out now to build the infrastructure would be to add a year one expense to that home. It wouldn't equal $124,000, but it wouldn't be that far off once you take a $3 to $4 million infrastructure project and allocate it across 70 homes.
Right.
Which
Okay.
we just couldn't sell.
And by
and so
year
we would-
one, you mean how much they would pay?
The only way we can
buy
pay
that
off the
unit.
construction loan otherwise is through proceeds of sale. So you would have to add that to the sale of the home, and that just won't sell, so we can't build it.
Okay, I have one other question. It's really for the town manager. Mark, what has been your analysis of this, and can the town afford this?
So we're in the process now, Fred, of putting together the municipal costs. We're working with Alex and with Tom and Zeke. We will have that information available to you before we ask you to vote on this application.
And I guess my only other response to can the town afford this is like, if decided the town can't afford this, it's basically saying the town can't afford to have more mixed income housing because we don't have any. There's nobody else is building it. We don't have any other avenues to do it. So I'm not saying the analysis shouldn't be part of the next discussion, but also that is essentially what it would be concluding, is that we just can't afford to be building mixed income communities. This is as efficient of a use of like the next one would certainly be more spread out, more infrastructure required per unit. So for us, we don't have other opportunities anywhere else in the state or in other developments that we could bring this level of efficiency to build this many mixed income units.
It's a good question, Fred. It's sort of crucially at the heart of this, and there's a lot of different levels to slice that. Year 1, year 10, year 21. But again, I think we're stuck in a situation, especially in rural Vermont, where we're cutting services, increasing cost, or growing the grand list. Those are really our three options, and this right now is the only path we know of to grow the grant list. And there's an increment retained that's less than the total tax revenue for the 20 years. And if we can pay it off faster than 20 years, great. But, you know, I do think it is more of an existential, broader picture, and which is in no way to diminish the challenge of creating an annual budget, which Mark and you all know intimately. Yeah.
So I think we understand all that, and we're in full support, and we understand what we've got to do. But we need to, as a town, need another shot at balancing this out to see what the actual thing is, so we can feel comfortable with moving forward. We got it. We've got to move forward. We just have to understand what the next 20 years is going to look like.
Right.
With this and that's what Mark is. We've had our initial look at it, and this is exciting, but we have work to do.
I don't.
So,
Yes, Alex.
apologies for
No worries.
interjecting myself back into the conversation. But this has been an ongoing conversation, and one potential solution we've arrived at, and that I would certainly like to propose in my capacity helping to facilitate this, is doing a second work session focused very specifically on the question of how municipal costs will compare to revenue generated over time. And that I think is certainly something that, again, ACDC would be interested in helping to coordinate with members of the select board, with town staff, with the developer, and potentially a third-party facilitator who may be able to provide additional professional insight into that question. And I think that would be the best opportunity to really, again, similar to the first work session, go into the weeds and have really sound analysis. Also in that work session, it would give us an opportunity to provide what might be more realistic models of revenue generated, which you're not seeing tonight in those conservative models. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised by the revenue that comes from the 15% increment retention when you apply more realistic escalations to property tax revenues and appreciation over time. So certainly there's the opportunity to go into more detail on that.
And we said this to Alex, I mean, yeah, a second, but and a third and a fourth. And if, I mean, this is going to be an ongoing partnership and an ongoing review by VEPSI and their economists, and they're going to come back and challenge some of our assumptions, and we're going to have to justify the pro forma and the modeling to them. And so it is really important for us to hit the timeline to give VEPSI a shot at approving this by the end of the year. But even while they're reviewing it, I think we're going to be pretty frequently, if not with, you know, Mark and David, with everybody going through these projections.
And off of what Alex said, just an insight to something that came out of our first work session was the sometimes unseen economic impact of a new person moving into our community. So if we really think about that, something maybe that we can't see on a data sheet, and I'm sure there are people who can do that, but there is a real economic impact to bringing more families to our community that we will feel even if we don't have the full tax increment, right? We'll see that in our schools, we'll see that in all of our creative sector, and all the things that make the community great.
And each one of those people that comes in has an impact on the cost of our budget for the community.
Yes.
So
yes.
there's a flip side.
Cost and benefits.
That's what we're trying to understand.
And we're already seeing some, like in the first 61 units, we just brought 6 families out of homelessness with on-site supportive services. Could you quantify the financial benefit to the town of that, of no longer having to, it's very difficult, but there's a lot of those external benefits that we won't be able to model for you, but they're real and they're already happening, and they're going to happen in the second phase of the community.
I have a couple questions. The first is, are you refinancing any existing infrastructure that you've put in with this tax increment?
No.
No. None of the existing road superstructure?
Nope.
None of that is going to be included?
No.
Okay. Perfect answer. The next is, lot 10 is a sticking point, right? You've gone ahead, you've got a couple of those townhouses looking very move-inable, and you did that prior to any assertion of CHIP as an option for it. And you're saying to the town, well, let's pretend we didn't build this. Let's go back to April of this year and use that value for your tax rolls and include that increment for this expansion into phase two. You've already put these houses up. Why? What's the justification for including it in this?
Yeah, so the way the CHIP program works and the way the increment's calculated is they pick an arbitrary date, which is April 1st, which is the day that the assessor picks, right? And they set the improved value then,
Sure.
and they use that for the year in which the CHIP application is approved, right? And so, I mean, we mentioned this and we talked about this. We could have just paused all community. We think about this as just a community that we are rolling through as quickly as we can. We could have paused at that moment. We talked about this as CHIP was coming and just said, let's hold off. Let's not put anything in. Let's see what comes in. If CHIP works, we'll be able to roll through with all these homes and be able to include them in the increment. But that might be next year. It might be the year after if we pause and don't move on from here. The timing of when CHIP was approved, when VEPC got the guidelines out and how it worked at construction, that was an option. But we said, no. We're on the modular construction schedule. We have a construction contract ready to go with all of these. Let's move forward with them. And it does a couple things. One is it lets us get the most efficient pricing and keep the community going. And two, it lets us do a really pretty safe model of what the increment's going to be and have that start paying off right away. And so it maximizes the loan we're able to take out to build the infrastructure, which still isn't enough. We're going to have to find other sources and pass along some of that to some of the buyers. But it lets us maximize what that increment is worth and its ability to serve a debt instrument that we can take out now to build this infrastructure. Without Lot 10, without Lot 11, we're really not going to be able to size a loan that's going to be able to build all the infrastructure we need. Yeah.
Another good answer. I've got two more quick questions before I'm going to go to the public. I understand that the college put up $2.5 million of bridge financing for infrastructure on phase one, or A or whatever it is. Is that also 20-year money for Summit to repay from your ongoing business operations?
Yeah, the way the college chose to support was first to unlock the acquisition of the parcel, right? And then to do the last final bridge financing. And the way that those payments were all structured was we pay a certain per unit price deferred until we sell it, which is a lower price if it's an affordable unit and a higher price if it's a market rate unit. And so essentially, they're subsidizing something with an affordability subsidy on it, and also taking the risk that we don't end up building fully out. And so the loan is just repaid when we are actually building units.
No term.
And so if we get stuck here and we're done, they're going to lose on the investment because we're not going to have built enough units to have fully paid that off. And that's a risk they were willing to take to try to facilitate getting this done. But as we build every unit, if we build it all out, then they can recoup that money. Yeah.
Cool. One last. My understanding is that municipal borrowing rates are considerably lower than private borrowing rates. CHIP allows municipal financing as well as developer financing. Have you looked at what the numbers look like if we do this with municipal money instead of your money?
Yes, and there's some, again, so the way that this TIF, for everybody's benefit here, right? Typically TIF is just municipal bond, right? Public vote, general obligation, full faith and credit of the town type debt. The way CHIP was written, it can be developer financed. The risk ends up being, distributed away from the town. That's the route we're going, both because we can't wait for a town vote next March. We don't really want to call a special vote for the purpose of a town bond, and we also really don't want to put that on the town. There are other options through the Vermont Bond Bank to do sort of project-specific potential ones here that we're still exploring. But we think we have a debt package that we're at least still negotiating that's going to work at the rate we need. Obviously, rate is a huge factor here.
Sure.
So I think we've got some really good options that allow us to avoid the general obligation bond that I think work well for this project and how the pace at which we're trying to finance this.
Okay, thanks. If you want to come up to this mic next to John. Yeah, thanks. And state your name for the record.
Dick Turk. I just have one question. You're building out on phase 2, you've already started building those units. If you don't get the CHIP funding, are you selling those units now, or are you waiting till the CHIP funding comes in before you set the prices of those units? Because if the CHIP funding doesn't come in, then you built houses that are based on the CHIP funding, and if it doesn't come in, what's your alternative plan?
Yeah, so those homes we can sell. Those homes aren't going to be impacted. I think this is the conversation that Andy brought up about the homes on Lot 10 that are currently under construction. Those are being built on infrastructure that's currently paid for.
Okay.
We're not needing to pass those costs along. This is, and maybe if you go back to the last slide and what I sent over today, David and Mark, it's that other sheet. This is sort of the difference between the project and the housing development site. The housing development site is what you're generating the revenue from. The project is what are using the uses that you're spending on. One more down. So what's it, those homes that are currently under construction are in the red bubble down towards Seminary Street extension. Mm-hmm. We're not building any of the infrastructure with this increment that supports those homes.
Okay.
Those are ready to go.
Yep.
But we need the increment from those in order to continue building through the community and build that infrastructure that's required to unlock the next 70 to 140 homes.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
I think Mike has that.
Yeah, Mike, come on down.
Hi, it's Mike Roy. I'm curious about how this works in terms of the school district. So they are obviously impacted by this, and so do they get a chance to say, like, we actually don't want to give 85% of the school budget from these families to the project? I'm just curious what that step is.
Right. Yeah. So it's the state tax department, obviously, that manages the ed fund and collects that revenue. And the basic premise of the project, of the program when the legislature created it, was we, the legislature, are willing to put up 85% of the increment generated by new construction and fill the ed, figure out how to come up with the funding gap for the ed fund. If, and the town has to at least match that with an 85% increment commitment. By the way, the 85% comes because we're doing mixed income and affordable housing. It's 75% if you're just doing all market rate. But what the legislature can do is say, we are willing to tell the tax department that the 85% increment into the ed fund, and the municipality has to agree to at least that same amount. So I think the mechanism of it from the town is that everybody pays their bills. All of the homeowners will be paying their bill.
Their tax bill,
excuse me, and then working with the town to make sure that the town, instead of sending the ed fund portion to the state, is going to be sending 15% of it to the state, and the rest is going to be put in this reserve fund that's going to be used to serve the CHIP debt.
So the school board doesn't have to worry. So like the town is
funded.
The town is worried about, like, this is money that we were counting on to plow the streets.
The municipal revenue source is what Mark's going to do the analysis on, but the state's funding the schools. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks. Ross, come on down.
That was a good question, by the way. Thank you.
Ross Conrad. I have a couple questions about that area in the solid blue line that you said is town-owned infrastructure. Does that mean the town is fully responsible for maintaining everything within that blue line?
Yeah, so the way the development agreement that we originally developed with the Selectboard before we started this was, in phases, we articulated what we were going to be building, and what of what we were going to be building is going to be dedicated to the town. For what we've built, those deeds are sitting in a filing cabinet upstairs, and after a 1-year warranty period, the town will record their ownership of it. So once we build it, it passes the 1-year warranty, we have a letter of credit out, securing the quality of it. The town takes that over and takes over the maintenance of it. Yeah.
So how is that going to work exactly? It seems to me, if we have to do that, then in the winter, we have to send a plow truck in. Mm-hmm. It's kind of stupid and inefficient for the truck to drive between the road and our town area and then just plow that area. They're going to do the whole thing. Are you going to be reimbursing the town?
This is what's in the blue right now is just
what we're gonna be building with this financing source. Everything before that on the major road, we've already built and the town will take over. So
they're gonna own all the road?
yes.
Yeah, these are supposed to be
I
public
see.
roads.
Okay, I thought this was just an
No.
island in the middle. Oh, thank you.
This is just the phase 2 part. No,
Yes.
no, no.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
Good to hear.
And credit to Emily and her team for all of the work we've been through over the last year and a half, building out that first part.
Yeah, we've got someone online.
You okay?
Bring 'em.
Okay, so this is Ellen. Ellen, you just need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Just unmuted.
Yep.
So Ellen Cronin. I just wanted to add a couple of things to the record from some reports on past TIF use. So this is information from a report mostly on TIF use in Chicago. So obviously not exactly the same thing, but their comments are not good. So it says, TIFs are slush funds controlled by local city council members and mayors. TIF money is an off-the-books piece of local civic budgeting that is very hard to monitor. The TIF process is secretive, shrouded in jargon, and intentionally designed to be hard to track and compare across different times and jurisdictions. TIF dollars are doled out to mostly white male developers for private projects in affluent parts of the city that are of little or no public merit. The TIF process is corrupting, not only in terms of conflict of interest, but also because it perverts the planning process. And finally, created to supposedly benefit underdeveloped and working class areas, TIFs as deployed are racist. So obviously not all those comments are going to apply to yours, but I think it's important to just look at where in the past there have been major problems with how TIFs have been used in different states. And one thing I would also point out is that the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy stated local governments should provide extensive, easily accessible information about TIF use, revenues, and expenditures. Greater transparency would help elected officials monitor and regulate the use of TIFs. So this is probably much more of a comment to the township to make sure that we are putting in place an appropriate process to clearly monitor how these monies are used, how much we are losing over time, and what we gain from it. So we should have that set up before we move forward with this, so that we're going to be able to track it, and we should be clear and straightforward on it. So I'm very happy to hear that Mark is going to be putting together documentation about that. I think that's going to be great, and I think that's something that's really important before we move forward.
Ellen, can you share the source of those comments you were reading about TIF initially?
So that's one of them I just got rid of, but the
Sorry.
The one in terms of guidance
Was the
there's a
Lincoln
report
Institute.
from 2018,
Okay.
and it's from the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy, and that states why tax increment financing often fails and how communities can do better. And they're obviously not from Vermont, so how Vermont is putting their process forward, so how we're going to do the TIF, but then how our program is different from past programs, I think is really the key here. And this is not in any way negative for Summit Properties. Summit Properties has actually, you've done some great things already, and maybe this is the best way to move forward, but we just need to do it carefully. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen.
I think that's a great point, and especially some of those questions that people had early on, like, okay, how are we supposed to know how much increment this generates? How much will these homes be worth? What are they actually going to build? Is it years out? TIF sometimes is so speculative that you don't know if it's going to be housing or commercial. Yeah. This project, the two things, by being project-based and being the second half of this community, means that we now have specific data on exactly what the assessments are going to be. We know what the types of housing, the unknown benefit question, like is it actually going to be mixed income housing? Is this actually going to be the type of housing we want in this community? Mm-hmm. Those questions, because of the project-based nature and the fact that it's halfway through this community, are answered in a way that I think those CHIP concerns do often crop up. And it's exciting that we don't have those unknowns here. It's a level of certainty that you almost never see in TIF.
And her questions came up plenty in the legislative testimony around the project, and I mean, the guidelines of the VEPC guidelines are, you know, dominated by reporting requirements and transparency, and I think that transparency comment was a great one and was heard by the legislature when they set this up.
If I may elaborate, yeah, all great questions and great points that come up so frequently in any TIP conversation. But as Tom and Zeke indicated, there is an ongoing reporting process, so the municipality will be required to submit an annual report to VEPC by February 15th of each year. That is something that my organization is willing to support. So there's that ongoing reporting and compliance. I think it's also two other things I'll mention that I think are important to acknowledge in the accountability involved in CHIP is I always like to remind folks that, again, in every case where CHIP is being used, the municipality is the applicant and everything is done at the municipality's discretion, and that is something that's unique to Vermont in the broader context of CHIP. So I think that's really important to bear in mind. The other thing I think is really important to acknowledge, I think often goes overlooked, is that regardless of what that increment is that's generated in any given year, the developer can only be reimbursed for the eligible cost associated with the infrastructure that's being serviced through CHIP. So, for example, arbitrary numbers, but if this project site were to generate $200,000 in incremental revenue in a given year, Summit, and they only have debt costs with that infrastructure of $150,000, they can only get the $150,000. So that excess increment goes back into special reserve funds. So there are, I think, a good set of checks and balances involved in this program that I think ensure that accountability.
Wait, can you clarify the excess increment in a situation like that goes to a reserve fund? It doesn't come
Yeah.
back to us.
So the town manages that special reserve fund, and this is something that we discussed in the work session. So, and I'm going to get a little into the weeds here, so I'll do my best to be succinct. But the form of TIF that really will be applied here is what they call pay-go TIF or pay-as-you-go TIF. So you're not just cutting a check and handing it to that developer, you're making payments on an annual basis based on the increment generated and the cost being reimbursed. So again, those property taxes will be paid as usual. All that money will go into the special reserve fund associated with this project. And again, each year your financial director will run the math. They will take the 15% out that goes back to the town, the 15% from the ed fund property tax that goes back to the state. They'll subtract any administrative costs that the town assumes. So again, the project is paying for that. And then if there's any excess increment, it remains in that special reserve fund so that that debt could be paid down sooner. And yeah, so it doesn't just go back to the developer.
Yeah.
We're invoicing for our debt service payments in that reserve fund.
And if it all fell apart, we never actually developed it, then it would go back to the town, right? Eventually, right?
Thank you.
Not to us.
Clarifying.
There is also, I should mention, a requirement from VEPC that after 10 years, the town basically looks at the housing infrastructure agreement and ensures that whatever portions of increment are being granted to the project still makes sense. So there is another level of review that provides for adjustments to again ensure that whatever is being reimbursed is in line with the increment generated.
The VEPC process, once they have a completed application, is 90 days.
Completed application and a scheduled site visit. They
And
have
a
to give an
scheduled
answer.
site visit.
And they know the clock we're on, and they know
Okay.
the importance. Yeah.
So we absolutely to hit end of year need this done. Yeah, soon. Let's say.
Yeah, I mean, what we told VEPC was, and it's gonna, after you approve it, it's gonna take a little bit of work. Alex will help with, but that'll largely be between us and Mark. We said we're gonna have, if we can stick to our timeline of trying to get this application into VEPC by the end of August, middle and end of August, they thought it'd be no problem scheduling that site visit really quickly, and that gets us sort of into early December on the 90-day clock, which is I think what we need in order to hit that. I know there's, Mark's gonna do a little bit more work on some of the economic analysis. The resolution I think that was provided for today includes, this is what we're looking for. The resolution is for the approval for Mark to submit the application to VEPC, right? And we would, I think we would ask that resolution, I think as already drafted, said subject to attorney review, and we can put in there subject to economic review by the town. Pepsi's gonna do its own economic review. And so there's gonna be an ongoing process here. We can continue to the next meeting, but that would really be our last shot at this. I think if the select board was willing, I would prefer a resolution tonight to approve that, subject to attorney review and economic review, and we do that sort of concurrently with the VEPC review. But again,
it's very
as long
hard
as we sort
for
of
us to
understand.
get a sense of the board outside of a meeting, and I think it would be hard for us to delegate to staff the analysis and response to that analysis without us coming back to
Had to ask.
I understand.
That's fine.
That's fair.
Good job.
Yeah.
If we're continuing to 2 weeks from now, we just need to make sure we're on the agenda, and we'll grind with Mark to make sure we get all the work done that we need to get everybody comfortable.
We did send the resolution and the housing agreement to council to get started on the review, just to keep the wheels in motion, so.
Yeah.
Legal review is not particularly fast in this.
A lot of experience with town lawyers, and municipal lawyers generally, so we understand, yeah.
So you need to move it to the next select board meeting, right?
I think we will continue the public hearing. I do want to ask if there's any other members of the public with comments that they'd like to provide. I do not see any.
August 12th. Okay.
Do we need a motion to continue?
Yes.
So
it's in the.
Oh,
Yeah.
what do you know?
I move to continue this public hearing to August 11th, is it? Select board meeting at the Middlebury Town offices
What time?
at 7 p.m. Or
First
whenever the agenda item comes up.
7:20.
7:20.
7:20.
Motion,
Second.
second. Any other comments before we continue this public hearing?
No.
None of you Zoomers? All right.
Isn't August 11th the same day as the primary? Are they counting votes?
That would sound
at
right.
7?
Well, you're not counting votes.
Isn't that counting votes? Danielle and I are both on the.
Not
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, well, Danielle and I have.
Call
our
up the
back
Board
on
of
that
Civil
then.
Authority and see if you can find a cover. Moved and seconded, all in favor of continuing the public hearing, please indicate.
Aye.
Okay. We are
Thanks,
recessed.
everybody.
Thank you so
for your
much.
time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Alex. Well, that was obviously the contentious issue of the night.
The fun one, maybe. I don't know. We left some energy.
Oh, dear.
So we'll skip.
All right, as it's 7:50 p.m., we are now at agenda item 7, the Infrastructure Committee recommendation follow-up on the town wastewater treatment facility project dryer selection. Welcome, Emily.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess maybe. I guess I want to hear from the select board what approach you would like us to take to this conversation, since there's a lot of information in the packet. I know what I would like to share is the slideshow. This one is the one that I created and just talks about the cost, so I'd like to go through that. And then our engineers are here, so if you have questions specific for them, they included a slide exhibit and also a back and forth with DCR, with senior management. So if you have any questions on that, we can pull them in. And then if you have questions from Energy Committee folks or from Jeremy, they are also in the room. So let's start with can you pull up the other one, David? Yeah. That one, yeah. So my big concern with this conversation is cost. We have a finite amount of funding available with our bond vote. And when we went out to bond, it was specific to upgrading the actual plant. It was not, just to keep us in compliance with our actual program and all of the regulations at the state level. So just a little background, our biggest funding source is Clean Water State Revolving Fund, CWSRF. And the benefit of CWSRF is that they call it an administration fee of 2%. It's really the same as interest on any other loan, but it's a considerably lower rate than what we would find with the Vermont Bond Bank. So could you go to the next slide? This was the application for last year. I submitted a number of projects. So each winter I submit projects. There's a drinking water side and the clean water side. Clean water side always runs out of funding. Drinking water side always has excess funding. So if you look at this year's draft, we have 5 projects funded on the draft drinking water side. On the clean water side, the only one that we secured was the one that we already had, which was this bottom project, or second to bottom. And so we submit these applications in January, early February, and they are ranked based on questions that you have to fill out, like, is this the lowest cost alternative solution for this project, is one of the questions. So you receive points based on how developed the project is, if you have already secured a bond vote, things of that nature. The bottom of this spreadsheet is the last project that was funded. So we were 1 point away for the $6 million project that's currently out to bid, 1 point away from getting funding. If we lose 1 point on the bigger project, that's a huge difference in if we are able to achieve funding or not. So it makes me extremely nervous to take any gambles with losing points in this application. Then could you go, I think, the next slide. Page. So this is, if we fund the project through this program, estimated 45 million and change. We also receive engineering services subsidy and also a CWSRF pollution control grant. So we have that pollution control grant estimated at 15%. I think the last P list we were more at like 23%. I forget. Do you remember?
You certainly qualify for higher.
Yeah.
I definitely would recommend being conservative on what
on this
will be in reality.
Yeah,
that you will
yeah.
receive.
So I mean, ideally we would get 35%, but don't know. So we estimated this at 15%. So, you know, $7 million right there that we would essentially lose if we lost this funding source.
We would lose that $7 million worth of funding if we don't get enough points to qualify.
Yeah, if we don't qualify with SRF. So, and then on top of that is the 2% interest rate. And then so our repayment, our annual debt payment with this calculation would be 2.3 million. And that's sort of what we've been ramping up our user rate to hit that target. I've been ramping it up to hit 2.5 just in case. I removed Northern Borders and I removed congressional spending from this. I think we might receive one or both of those, but we don't know. So, you know, I'd rather be conservative on how we are calculating our debt retirement so we don't have surprises in a couple of years when it comes due. Okay, next.
So that's a good percentage rate at 2%, and that's 2,348,000 per year divided by that magic number you gave me for 1,870-ish users.
You're good. Good job. You wrote it down, didn't you?
Yes, I did, because I can't remember anything, so I wrote that down. So 1,870-ish users are going to pay $2.3 million a year, which comes out to like
$100 a month.
Yeah, $1,200 a year for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Next slide. This is the approach if we did not receive SRF funding and had to go through the Vermont Bond Bank. And when I estimated, so the math is actually, it's in here rounded at 4.3, it's actually 4.25 in the spreadsheet. And I just heard back from the bond bank today. They offered two different options, but it would be 4.29 or 4.6, I think, were the two alternatives. So this is a little bit lower, but I think they also saw bond rates go up last week because of issues in the Middle East. So they're fluctuating. If things clean up on the international level, the bond rate will drop slightly. But it's been hovering around 4% to 4.2 for the last year and a half. So if we had to take this route, we lose the $7 million in subsidy and grant, and we have to pay a higher interest. So it would bring our annual bond payment up by over $1 million, $1.1 million. And so the difference it's a little bit greater than the chart that I included in the infrastructure committee packet or the last select board meeting. I think it equates out to more like $240 per property, and that's just because we're losing this funding source. That's not dealing with other increases within the wastewater.
So that would increase about $600 more per year per user.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
It would be significant.
Just to pay the interest on the bond.
Just to pay the interest on the bond.
Oh.
So that's my biggest concern with taking the electric approach, and I think it just purely is a money versus the interest of reducing greenhouse gas, and I get it, it's a real concern, but I think on both sides it's a real concern.
In that, for a full look at it, in that, where does our big rate users fit in there? That, I mean, this whole thing's gonna be paid by all of us, so that it's probably a little bit less of an impact per homeowner, but it's gonna be a huge impact on our big rate users, which is scary.
Concerning, for sure.
What it could do to their operations. So, okay.
Do you have other questions from information in the packet or what you heard last meeting?
No, the packet is pretty packed with information.
It's thick.
It's pretty full, yeah.
It's all dense.
Yeah.
I understand that clearly on the financial side, we want to be in the left-hand column here. Can you just spell out how the decision on the drier energy source distinguishes between these two columns?
If the left hand, so you have to when you're submitting for the priority list, you have to say that you are choosing the lowest cost alternative.
I see.
So as soon as you check that you're not,
gotcha.
You lose points.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fred, what you got for us?
In the packet, there's the Wright Pierce slideshow from dated 7/14.
We're having Wright Pierce come up to the table right now, Fred.
Okay. So right there, you're going up there.
We got it.
Open that one. Open that, and go to slide 6, please. From that.
Six is the end.
Right. Oop, back. Right there. Choosing the lowest 20-year net present value one is what Emily, I heard her say, is important to be able to qualify for the funding. Look at the bottom of that on note 2. You assume an electric boiler.
All of these comparisons were done based on electric boilers just to be equal across the board.
But by BCR, you told us back at the infrastructure meeting, doesn't have any electric ones.
They make electric, Fred, they're just not utilized in the wastewater industry. They are in the industrial sector, and they make them, but they're not in the wastewater field.
So if you showed this graph to the CWSRF funding people and said, you know, this is the lowest cost one, and showed that note 2, wouldn't that be sufficient?
No, it would. It certainly wouldn't be honest.
Is it the energy estimate from that based on electric energy and the cost of that electric alternative?
The application gets submitted annually, so it'll be based on the most current information. So it'll be based on the information that you will have for your next application is January 2027. So it'll be based on the information that we would have there, and Emily would be checking that where she feels appropriate.
I guess my question was, does this stack of bars on the left reflect the electric alternative that we were shown at the infrastructure meeting in terms of its cost and the overall energy costs, or not?
Yes, the columns reflect essentially using electricity as the energy source when you're looking at that heat cost column. So that gray column that's in each thermal sludge dryer alternative there, that was the preliminary analysis based on electricity costs at the time. Obviously, we've dove deeper into those costs since the initial dryer analysis was completed. But yes, that gray column is based on, at the time, using electricity as the heat source.
And the construction costs included all the wiring and all those extra generators and all that stuff?
No, that cost that you're seeing there for project costs that's just the equipment associated with the dryer at that point in time. It doesn't include the different disciplines.
We were in very preliminary engineering when this was presented, Fred.
Fred, my understanding is that these are 4 different ways of producing the biosolids,
Yeah.
and they've just normalized them all to electrical as the energy source for cost comparison, and that it's not saying that this is the lowest price way. It's saying this is the lowest price of these 4 methodologies with electrical as the energy source.
This is how we picked the BCR bioscrew,
Because we've already
which is
picked
not the topic we're doing tonight.
With the electric fuel cost.
But,
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to limit time at all?
Yeah, let's bring in the public, many of whom I'm sure are interested in speaking. I see that we've got Heather's hand up quickly, and we'll bring her up. So yeah, I think that's a great spot. Or you could sit next to Izzy so that Emily can remain if she's the right person to answer questions. Welcome back, Heather. It's good to have you here at the Rotunda.
It's so weird to sit in the back of the room.
Well, that's why we brought you to the front.
Yeah. So I wanted to make a couple points and ask some questions related to Emily's points. First, I would like to remind the select board that when we've gone to town meeting and we've made presentations to the town, asking them to support these bond votes, we've been very, very clear, the last few big ones that we've done, that if we didn't secure funding, it would delay the project. We wouldn't go forward if we couldn't get the funding to help offset these projects. And that feels really close to me because I've been the one that stood up on that stage and felt like I kind of made a promise to folks that we're only going forward. I mean, like, we've done other projects, you know, South Street, the water tank, all those things have been delayed while we waited for some of these clean water and drinking water projects to come through funding, right? It's really how we've made these projects affordable for the town. So if we can't get funding, in my opinion, that second column isn't even an option. Like the project doesn't move forward because that's not what we presented to the town of Middlebury and town meeting. So if we don't qualify, if we don't have the points, it's gonna delay the project. In my opinion, is the decision that should be made there. So I just wanna remind you of that, of where I stand, having been on the stage presenting the folks. The other thing I would love to just hear from Jenny and Wright Pierce, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name.
Amy.
Oftentimes if you choose, just like in building a house, any construction project, anything, you have choices to make, right? And you make choices as you go along, you choose things, you try to keep your price under control, but you choose something that costs more. Typically that means you have to cut things in other areas. You know, you have to make choices, you know, to either go with something less or to cut out something you might want or whatever. Assuming we could get funding and we went with a more expensive option, what would, in order to keep it under, you know, within what we budgeted, bonded for, what kinds of things would we have to cut out? What, do you have any sense of that? Like,
you can almost guarantee any dollar you're adding is being cut from someplace else. Where that cut comes from is it's a pretty detailed discussion with Emily and Dean and your staff to try to identify what the priorities are to them and an operation. Obviously the key priority is meeting your permit. Like that is anything that is not directly tied to what you absolutely need as a minimum to hit your permit becomes other. And that can be quite a bit of things. And there are things that make the facility operate better. So there's things that are improvements, they're better for the operators, they're better for overall quality. There's reasons in there. So it's hard to say, to point at, oh yeah, this goes, because we may be in that position anyways. I think it's the reality of what we see on pricing, unfortunately, we're seeing it all over. What you're always hoping for is that you've budgeted enough. I haven't had a project in the last 3-4 years in other communities in the same place where that has been the case, unfortunately. So it's not fun. It's not fun for any of us to go through and say what we'd hoped to include in the project is all going to be there. I guarantee we're going to be having those conversations really over the next couple months with Emily and Dean on, even separate from this completely.
Yeah.
Just what we have to look at, that they, be great if we can enclose the space. Well, it comes at a cost. It would be great if this piece of equipment we could improve the ability to maintain it by making it so you could retrieve it. It costs more to do that. That's probably not going to get that. There's going to be a whole series of those kinds of things where it makes it more efficient, easier on the operators. The environment that the operators are working in is better, but it doesn't have to be per code or to meet your permit. So, yeah, it's hard to say exactly. And also it's going to be bid day that defines really every piece of it. So
we don't know exactly, but we do know, we can say for certain, it's going to put more pressure on that process. And the things we're going to cut out are the things that are going to make the plant easier to run and operate and take better care of the people who are doing that job for us.
There's always an opportunity
because we don't need them, but we want them.
And we're starting, in my opinion, lean to start with, so there isn't low-hanging fruit of like, oh yeah, there weren't a lot of operator asks that haven't already been identified by us or Emily or others that's really tricky. We probably aren't going to have budget for that. And we've already gone through the path of identifying a handful of this, we really need this. And it's next project.
Yeah. So just as you're thinking and trying to make a decision, I know it's a tough one. I get it. Just think about the additional pressure on some of the things that might make those operators running that plant, their jobs a little better. I mean, it may already be super tight, we'll have to cut those things out anyway, but anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Heather. I would like to invite Mike Roy up initially as the person who put together a lot of the materials we've got before us, so that he can walk us through any of the points that maybe we glazed over on the 12th or 15th page.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks
for that really kind.
No, I read it all very carefully. I was just giving some flex to some of my fellow
I was
board members.
thinking about what Mark Twain once said. I apologize for writing such a long letter. I didn't have time to write a short letter.
Right.
So we had 2 weeks to put all this together, and so we threw a lot at you. And so I wanted to write this. I wrote this out partly because I want to be very careful, and partly just to try to synthesize and summarize a lot of the different materials that we shared with you. So there were kind of three areas that we focused on. So the first area was operational. And I'm glad to see Wright Pierce is here, so maybe we have the conversation right now, or we have it later. But there, if you recall, at the meeting 2 weeks ago, I offered to go talk to the manufacturer about, like, can we get a service level agreement? I want to understand better. So I have spent the last 2 weeks having very long conversations with VCR and the manufacturers of these thermal fluid heaters. There's three different bits of information that seem to me not quite consistent with the Wright Pierce piece. So we just need to kind of figure out, like, what's how to resolve the discrepancies that exist. So the first is kind of the first of its kind concern. So the electric and gas versions of the bioscrew are identical, except for the thermal fluid heater. BCR, the manufacturer of the bioscrew, partners with two firms that specialize in thermal fluid heaters. These companies both make electric and gas versions, and they have many, many installations of both types of thermal fluid heaters in a wide range of sizes and industries. The analogy that they use to describe the relationship of the thermal fluid heater to the bioscrew is the relationship that your dishwasher has to your hot water heater. The dishwasher needs hot water, and it needs the hot water heater to deliver that hot water. It really couldn't care less how the water got hot. It just needs hot water. So it can be, you can heat the water with oil, with gas, electricity. Pick your poison. But that the operation of the bioscrew just needs the mineral oil to be at 300 degrees, and you can do that with electricity or with gas. The three manufacturers I spoke with all repeatedly assured me that the decision we have to make is, as Emily pointed out, and I agree with her entirely, it's about the cost of energy and emissions. So they said we should not let the factor that there's never been a bioscrew of this size powered by electricity in a wastewater treatment plant affect our decision. Now, of course, they're vendors, so we should evaluate their assurances appropriately, but I found their explanation to be credible, and it was consistent across all the conversations that I had. The key distinction I understand is the bioscrew is the piece of equipment being evaluated. The thermal fluid heater is essentially a component that supplies the heat to it. The fact that this particular bioscrew has not previously been paired with an electric thermal fluid heater of this size doesn't mean that the underlying technology is unproven. It's just a component of a part that we have confidence in. I don't have any confidence in it because I don't know anything about bioscrews. I'm just to be clear. So the largest objection I've heard to electricity is or one of the largest objections I've heard to electricity is the concern about being a guinea pig, but I've heard repeatedly that there's nothing inherently experimental about this electrical thermal heater. So the main event is the dishwasher, the bioscrew, not the hot water heater in the basement. The second part that I heard in talking to the manufacturer of the thermal heaters is that in terms of spare parts, they felt that the spare parts availability for gas and electric were basically equivalent, and that in both cases there were certain long lead items that they would strongly recommend that we have on the shelf so that we don't end up with lots of downtime. And then the third was really about kind of service and maintenance. And so what I've heard from talking to these vendors is that depending on the skills within the team at the wastewater treatment plant, and again, this varies across different fields, much of the service can be done in-house for either type of thermal fluid heater. So we're not talking about the service of the entire system, but this particular component which is in question. It can also be contracted through a local vendor, in which they felt there were plenty of such vendors in the Northeast, and then the manufacturer itself can provide service. They did say that if we wanted to like buy a service level agreement, contract with them, they would sell it to us, but that would be a waste of money because they felt that this is not something that would be necessary. So I want to also fully endorse the principle that the staff operating the plant need to feel comfortable with the choices we make. And so I'm in no way saying like, who cares about the service and the maintenance, because that matters quite a bit. But I would also note that the entire plant will be chock-a-block full of new systems, and there's going to be a great deal of change in this new environment. And there's many, this would be one of the many changes in this new environment that will require the development of new skills. So anyway, I'm not entirely clear, like this is a great place to have that conversation. So if these are really important issues, it feels like maybe it's pause, sort it out and come back. And if these are really showstoppers, my sense is from my conversation, from what I'm hearing tonight, is really going to be about costs and emissions. So I'm going to turn to those two topics.
Great.
So in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, we submitted a piece that sort of talked about how the gas version basically makes it impossible for us to achieve these goals, and the electric version makes it possible. We were then asked to think about including lime in that analysis. So I spent the weekend having a great time looking at all of that data. And so having done that, we added, and Wright Pierce did a very nice job of providing the data about what are the greenhouse gas implications of the Scope 3 emissions associated with lime. So we took their number and all the other numbers that they provided, and here's what we found. We found that by shifting from lime to gas, we can reduce emissions by 11% from 564 tons to 503 tons. The shift from lime to electricity reduces it by 90% from 564 to 56. Therefore, shifting from lime to gas makes it impossible still for us to reach these goals. A very odd little fact, by adding the lime, it increased the starting point, and therefore it increased the finish point. And because the electricity saved so much, it turns out it buys us 57 tons of wiggle room to still be able to reach our goal, which I thought was a nice little twist. But anyway, the point is that the gas and electricity there is no marginal difference. If we go with gas, we will not be able to achieve these goals, and if we go with electricity, we will. And then the last bit is really cost, and so I'm going to just repeat myself from what I said last two weeks ago, is that these costs around the cost of electricity and gas over time, over the next 20 years, are impossible to predict. And so we're using a 2% for each over the next 20 years, but it's quite unlikely that that's actually how it's going to play out. And partly I was interested in looking at that chart, which that big chunk was about energy costs, and that's, who's to know if that's accurate or not. So I want to kind of end with a set of questions. So partly is with the numbers in front of you, looking at the model, assuming that the numbers are that it plays out as the models are, and it will be $100 or $150 per year on the sewer bill for your average ratepayer. What's the acceptable amount to avoid the 10,000 tons of emissions that we're going to emit in the course of 20 years if we go with gas? I don't think it's a mathematical question. It's really just a policy judgment. You have to kind of weigh these two goods against each other, lower cost possibly versus these emissions. The other is really a question about the energy path that you think the town should be on. So one locks us into a fossil fuel infrastructure that has very limited opportunities to change in technology and energy generation. And the second is choosing an electrical path, which is on a learning curve. Things are getting cheaper. There's incredible amounts of innovation happening. And so that feels like a future that's going to more likely lower the cost, whereas it seems like the cost of fossil fuels seem unlikely to go in that direction. And I guess the last question, which is more of a philosophical question, is what responsibility does the town have to do its part to confront climate change? Because I feel like that's really, there's a part of this question that's about money and emissions, but also the role of the town in addressing what we all know to be a very real emergency. So that's my.
Thanks very much, Mike. That was concise and useful. a question for you as someone who thinks a lot about pricing carbon. I do not, and I think about it, but not deeply. What are the range of carbon taxes that are under consideration?
I've heard sort of $50 to $200 a ton.
$50 to $200. And this is 500 tons per year across 1,800 subscribers at a cost of 150 per each. So it's almost like twice the upper limit of the greenhouse gas cost that we'd be putting on ratepayers to go this route. Is that right?
In exchange for not emitting all that, yes, that would be correct. And it's also the case, like and I would say a carbon tax is not the only driver of potential cost increases. So,
no, for sure. But the greenhouse gas pricing is to get at like the social cost of polluting, right?
Right, and that's why the 250 is the low end, 200. So the nations that put believe that has a higher social cost put a higher value on and make it a higher number.
Okay.
And some of it is also just to understand, like the way you do these is incrementally over time. So you don't show up in day one and say, we're now going to charge 200 per ton. You have to actually roll it out over time, because otherwise it's disastrous.
Some of us can throw math in our head as quickly as you did.
Sure.
But what I think you're saying is that in theory, it would be more expensive still. It would be more expensive to go with electricity than to be taxed for the carbon.
That is what I was saying.
That's what you're saying.
I was saying
I
about
couldn't do
2x
math, but
the cost
I'm trying to get your point.
of paying the greenhouse gas tax for the natural gas greenhouse emissions. Okay.
Which is, if you want to think entirely in economic terms, that would be a great way to think about it. If you want to think about what we're living through and what this is going to do to our planet over time, if every single town says all we care about is money, we don't care about greenhouse gas emissions, our individual act is not going to change the fate of the planet, but thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of communities making these choices is how this changes.
I do spend a lot of time thinking about prisoner's dilemma. I think prisoner's dilemma is in almost all of the group decision making that we do, and it is very hard to avoid ending up in that worst outcome quadrant of the outcomes. I'm sorry for those of you who are not familiar with the exercise. Thanks so much. Other questions for Mike while he's here? Fred, Danielle?
I just think that it's important to make the distinction. This is a very challenging conversation, as we all know, especially having a 12-year-old. But I don't know that it's all we care about is money. I think it's all we are having to weigh what the burden will be on the townspeople, not all of whom, have the same economic status. So I just think it's important that we're making that distinction rather than saying that we're, just thinking about money.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, when I think about it, the question is really like, what's that tipping point? So there's a point where if it were $5 a year, it'd be like, of course we're going to do this. 50, yeah, probably. 500, well, that starts. So there's just part of the equation is just trying to figure out like where do you draw that line? So that's how I would frame that.
Thanks so much, Mike. I would invite other folks up. I want to please ask that you not repeat comments. I understand a lot of people are here with a similar point of view. Please, Gain. Sorry.
Thanks, Andy. Gain Murphy, also on the Energy Committee. I just want to say two things about cost in terms of what's been brought up tonight. I too was working on the packet today, the part of the packet that I didn't contribute to. And so I was interested in our eligibility, of course, for the Vermont Clean Water State Revolving Fund. And so I looked up the criteria. There are 9 criteria, eligibility, public health, water quality, refurbishment, environmental resiliency, and sustainability. That's a criteria. It gets points. And there's others: affordability, project readiness, fiscal sustainability, capacity, cost effectiveness, and designated center and regional benefits. You can look at, as I look at it, I'm not Emily, I'm not an engineer, but these criteria are each important in their own way. Some get more points than others, but I don't see that it's the case, as I feel has been suggested, which is if we choose the more expensive option, even though it's cost effective, even though we lose out. It's more complicated than that, and I would encourage you to look at this criteria for yourself and see how you think it would balance out. You just have to Google Agency of Natural Resources and priority list state revolving funds, and then you get right to where you can click to see this clean water revolving fund priority list, and then you have to click, if you want to, if you're me and you want to look at the details, you click again, and then you get an Agency of Natural Resources document that on page 6 literally tells you who gets what points for what. And a lot of the points we get as a town is just our engineer doing a good job about putting the information together well. Like, there's points for different kinds of things. So I just wanted to make that point and encourage you to look at it yourself. I ran it through ChatGPT because I was doing much of this today. I wanted a quick answer. And its argument was, it's not necessarily, oh, you chose the lowest, you lose a point, but were you cost effective? Were you smart with your money and your planning, et cetera, et cetera? So take a look. The other thing I'd like to say about the cost question is there is a cost to ignoring climate change, and that affects all of us. It affects all of our citizens. So we all remember those floods of 2023 in July and August. Just if you look at FEMA type stuff, that cost the town about $4 million. And it costs people who didn't get FEMA. I have friends, and they had to gut their entire basement. They lost their driveway. They had to regrade their yard. FEMA did not help them. So it's, if you remember all those years ago, there was a tobacco industry and lung cancer, right? There's not a one-to-one correlation, right? I've never smoked a cigarette, I might still get cancer, but there is a the science tells us that if we keep ignoring climate change, these major storm events, climate disaster events will continue, and our town, the citizens of our town will keep paying. So thank you very much for your time, appreciate it.
Judy? I'm not going to start a timer, but please be concise.
I'm sorry?
No, sit down, please. You came up to me beforehand and you asked if there's going to be a timer, and I was just saying there's no timer, but please.
I suggested a timer.
Be concise.
I suggested.
I can set my timer.
Do not.
Okay, all right. So I've got a couple things. One is an iteration or reiteration. I think it's really important to once again indicate that the select board adopted a resolution to reduce the amount of emissions in Middlebury by, I think it was 80% by 2030. It'll be a travesty if you don't do that. One of the things that has been brought up over time is affordability. You know, we need to make things more affordable in Middlebury. I think the time has come where we need to make things more livable. I mean, if we keep following this path, our environment will be less and less livable, and we won't have to worry about whether it's affordable. one of the things that was, and I had a hard time hearing, but, you know, the steady nature of natural gas pricing will make it, you know, more easily predicted. Unfortunately, natural gas prices have been pretty volatile the last 4 to 5 years. And any disruption, so we get our natural gas primarily from Canada. Who knows what's going to happen there if that's disrupted. The major natural gas resources are from Russia and Iran and Qatar, yep. And the major source of natural gas in the United States is in Texas. And if Texas were to get hit by a natural disaster like it was a number of years ago, that will be a major disruption to the natural gas supply for this. Sorry, 1 second. One more. Oh, and I think this was mentioned earlier, that electric systems will likely become cleaner and more efficient and more everything. And meanwhile, natural gas systems are pretty much static in terms of where they're going, where they've been, and so on and so forth. So you see this, you know, same old kind of thing with going with natural gas. You have a potential for amazing improvements if you go to electric.
Thanks very much, Judy. I think I saw Ross's hand next among the folks.
Thank you, Ross Conrad. So in terms of the price of gas, I was interesting just today. I was reading a report from Bill McKibben, who tends to keep up on these things, and he was saying that the industry and financial journals now are starting to talk about the fact that the easy to get gas is, because they're pumping so much of it, is starting to run out, and it's going to be getting harder and harder to get gas, which means it's going to cost them more, and the price is going to go up. They're expecting roughly, the experts currently are saying probably by 2035, the price of gas is going to be about twice as what it is now. So these, in the long run, I think it sounds like electricity is going to be cheaper, even though it's more expensive now. That's what it appears to be. But for me, this really comes down to two options, right? One option, if you choose that road, there's no hope, right? According to the best science we have, we've got really about 4 years to greatly reduce our emissions, or the worst case kind of nightmare scenario is going to happen. There's some question whether organized human existence will continue for 50, 75 years from now or not. That's the kind of hopelessness we're potentially facing. The other path, there's some hope. And I've got to believe that any decent person, when faced with two choices, one where there's like no hope and one where there's some hope, you're going to choose the path where there's some hope. And we're smart people. We can figure out some way to maybe assist those the burden is too much for, maybe if we choose a path that's the difficult one. But we've been doing the same thing up to now, always looking at the financial thing, and it's gotten us into this problem that's getting worse. And we've got to change the way we do things. We've got to take some chances, try to think more creatively, and just do things differently. And so I'm hoping you guys will choose differently. And let's try this path where there's potential for hope for the future, for the grandkids, and that, we can figure it out somehow. We'll work through it. We'll do the best we can. But to me, it's kind of one or the other. So I'm hoping you're going to keep your commitments. I mean, it started back in 2002. The town committed to the Earth Charter, which is all about maintaining the ecological health of our planet. And then you back that up with this greenhouse gas commitment. So now's the time to show that Middlebury isn't the kind of town that's going to just go back on its commitments when it becomes inconvenient. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross. Gentleman in the hat. No, now you're making me a liar.
Thank you. My name is Barnaby Feeder, resident of Southridge area of Middlebury. I think that the one overall statement that has jumped out at me in all of this is the certainty with which people are saying, if you go the gas route, you can't meet our goals. If you go the electric route, you can. I think there's huge problems with price signals that are sent for all forms of energy in our country, and they're easily manipulated. And so being certain about what that data is going to be, as some people have already said, is difficult. But I do think, and also, I for one believe that even if it's not really rational in the long term, the feelings of the people who are running the plants and have it on their back, this is already familiar to me, I want to work with that, are things that, in being good employers, we don't entirely discount. That said, I do believe if the decision is made that we agree that we're giving up on meeting the stated goals for reductions, I think the board, select board, owes it to the town to couple its vote with a clear statement that we are repudiating those goals as a reasonable goal for the town, and we need to set up something to work with people to ameliorate the damage we're doing by not going towards those goals. To just make this a decision and say, this is what we were left with, this is reasonable now, and pretend that we can deal with what the goals are again in the future without stating that we actually, with knowledge, are stepping away from them, I think would be a failure of leadership on the part of the board. So I just want to throw that out there.
Thanks, Brian. Name in front. Oh, the both of you?
I said the, you say the.
I said the ma'am, but.
Ma'am, go ahead.
Ma'am and man are very, I can understand the confusion.
Good evening. I know it's getting late and I will be brief. Elizabeth Ottinger. And without repeating my appreciation of what the last three people have said, I feel very strongly about keeping our commitment. We didn't make a commitment because, oh, let's do it today, maybe we'll change our minds tomorrow. We made a commitment. And to me, to go back on our word, because the numbers, which as everyone has said, are imprecise, don't right now support that. It can seem very easy to tell the town, oh no, we can't charge $600 a person, but that $600 is not a definite number at all. Everything is imprecise. And if we start with the premise that we're keeping our word and we are doing the best we can, and we think that in the long run this is better for the town, to me that is what, as a citizen and a taxpayer, I would hope we would do. And going back to Emily, the point, I don't know what the regulations are behind all the questions and all the point discussion, but I have to wonder whether we could have some asterisks and say, yes, we're choosing the lowest cost because after factoring in all the other costs, such as carbon, which sadly is less than I knew, but possibly there's an option there, which of course we would disclose. It's the lowest cost when you factor in all the costs. And the other question is it an alternative for us, given that we have given our commitment to lower our greenhouse gases? Can we even say that's an alternative? I don't know. Speaking as a taxpayer, I want to keep my word. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go up here. Sorry.
Sir.
You're next, Richard.
Dick Turk again.
Yeah, Dick.
Basically, the one thing I do want to comment on Heather's, if we did a bunch of value engineering to get the price down to where it's more comparable, I don't think that would get us the points, because we still, in order to be apples to apples, we would have to do the same thing with all the systems. So I don't think that would help us as far as for getting us the points we need. The other thing that I want to bring up is that Mr. Roy did a great job of, actually I had sent out a response on Front Porch Forum with the list, and he basically went right down my list. He did a great job.
It was a good list.
And I got a number of responses back. I've got most of the responses I got back were not on Front Porch Forum. They were sent to me by text or by email from people that didn't want to say anything. But better than 2 to 1 comments were the concern of the cost of living in Middlebury and the cost of, we try to do what's right, we really do. And I think basically the town does a great job. There are other areas where we can work on our energy to try to meet those goals that were set. I think we should do that. I'm 100% in favor of that, but this project, the cost of this project is so high, and it's going to push our bond capability as well for future projects. But the majority of the people that emailed me back and texted me back were in favor of the lower cost method. That's all. Thank you.
Commissioner.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Richard Hopkins. A couple of quick points. When I was on the Energy Committee when we worked with the board to adopt the policy that we were talking about tonight, and we originally had proposed a 80% reduction by the year 2027, and I was asked why that year, and I said because that's the year I turned 80, and I would like to. I don't know how much. I have a good chance of living to 80, but maybe not that much longer, and so I would like to see us achieve these goals in my lifetime. But we ended up moving it back to 2030. I'm in pretty good health, so maybe I'll make it to 2030. But the town has made several investments that were really important and positive. It bought a couple of electrical vehicles, and thank you, Emily. It installed a heat pump for heating and cooling of the recreation center. This new building that's going in right next door here is fossil fuel free. We have done some really good things. Unfortunately, this decision about the wastewater treatment plant is really large. It's just quantitatively large, and so it takes up a lot of space, as we've been talking about. Okay. Somebody earlier mentioned Bill McKibben's piece this morning. It's called Bloated and Gassy. It was on his Substack this morning. I recommend it to all of you. If you haven't looked at it, look for it. Bill McKibben on his Substack. He makes a fairly persuasive case that the price of gas is likely, of natural gas to the consumer, is likely to go up rather than go down. Nobody can know for sure, but in addition to being close to exhausting the easily accessible fields, we also have an unfriendly power that keeps closing the Strait of Hormuz. You may have noticed. And a very large fraction of our natural gas is at risk of periodic disruption, and there will be price shocks every time there's a disruption. So I think the relative cost estimates over a 15 or 20 year period are hard to be sure, hard to know about, but we should not dismiss the idea that natural gas will become much more expensive to the consumer.
Richard, before you go, I have attended your presentations on greenhouse gas and the municipal contributions for many years, and pretty much every year I say, what about diesel? 20% of the 2022, whenever we made that agreement, usage was diesel, and we've had no kind of mainstream ways of reducing that percentage of the town's energy use, and that would be our entire energy budget. We would need everything else to be greenhouse gas free to reach our target. I've not found the answers in prior years satisfactory, and I've always thought that these targets were kind of thwarted by that at least. And I'm just looking for your
our thinking, I think, was that vehicle manufacturers were going to and are going to introduce more and more heavy-duty electrical vehicles, and that trend has continued. The current administration is throwing roadblocks in the way of doing that, of making progress with the heavier vehicles, and we didn't anticipate that when we set this goal, that we would have an administration that was actively trying to thwart the electrical conversion, not just be neutral, but actually stop it.
Yeah.
But manufacturers continue to roll out heavy-duty vehicles that are electric. They're not yet mass market, but neither was a car like my VW ID 4 or 5 years ago. I'm pleased to have it now. But the Energy Committee can speak in more detail to those issues.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks.
Yes, please.
First, I want to thank the Select Board. My name is John Cook.
There we go.
I live on Halpin Road, next door to Dan Brown. I want to thank the Select Board for enabling this discussion. I want to thank the Infrastructure Committee for their hard work on this project, and the Energy Committee for their very difficult and hard work that they've done. This is a tough issue. There are no simple answers. We're in an unusual and an unprecedented time with, some people call it the great unraveling, beginning of societal collapse. Let's hope not. I really hope not. But previously normal considerations are no longer sufficient. There are very poorly understood risks arising from our climate polycrisis. For example, how do we prevent our beautiful green mountains from burning up? And many of those problems are impracticable. But previously imagined, as the gentleman before me said, previously imagined and informed responses are being actively undermined by the current administration and Congress. We're being set back decades in our ability to respond to the polycrisis. And we don't want to push it even 1 millimeter back any farther. If you look at the costs, estimated costs to consumers, to families, built houses, of the different versions, different energy sources, first, we're going to have to pay for something, one or the other. So we're going to pay more regardless. And over time, if you compare electricity to the two forms of natural gas, by 2030, 2040, the percentage difference between electricity and gas is very, very small. So the costs are not that great, not that greatly different. So I hope you will continue to give this the serious and very good consideration that you have to date, and I hope you will decide to go with the electric.
Thanks, John.
the speed of the hands is going up. Fred, we're gonna wait until we hear from everyone in the public who has things to share. Appreciate it. And if you can stay awake, it looks dark out there on the public.
It's nighttime.
Yeah, clearly, it's very much nighttime. Jeremy, come on down.
Hi. Jeremy Rathman. Yeah, I'm not going to go through that. Don't worry.
Okay, good.
So, a couple points that I wanted to make here tonight about this. One, I think it's very important with these decisions that we are working with good, clear data. And I want to make sure that it's cleared up that previously at this meeting it was said that the gas dryer was going to add 500 metric tons of greenhouse gases to the town. And that is not true. It will add 500 metric tons of greenhouse gases to the town based on the accounting system that we were using with the Energy Committee, right? We did a resolution that did not specifically call out scope 1, 2, or 3 emissions. It alluded to electrical and carbon and stuff in the preamble, but once you got into the actual resolution, it really said pretty much everything. So why we're not counting scope 3, I don't know. But we don't actually know what the total greenhouse emissions of the town are because we don't count scope 3. And if you do a little research like I did, you'll find that scope 3 is in most places well over 50% of the emissions. Many places it's 70% of the emissions. We don't know what they are. So the reason that I'm bringing that up is that we did do, Wright Pierce presented calculations, and I don't know that that's been gone over tonight, of what the actual lime is doing for greenhouse gases based on the upstream, right? Because lime through calcination, calcium carbonate, heat, bust off the CO2. So you end up with every ton of lime, you make more than a ton of CO2 gas. So in reality, even with the gas, you will reduce greenhouse gas emissions of that sludge handling process with the town. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. Based on the calculations I ran, you're going to drop it by about 12%. The other point I want to make is I, as well as Heather, was there on town meeting day pitching this and selling this to the public. And I was very happy to do so. I very much believe in the project. But I did go back before this meeting and I went and I looked at what our actual bond vote warning was. And I looked at what our informational stuff was. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I want to make a couple points. The first is Article 7 lists a whole bunch of things we're going to spend money on. Some of those things we've already cut out of the phase 1 of the project before I even left the treatment plant because we can't afford it. I don't believe we're bidding hydrogen sulfide mitigation or flood mitigation at the main pump station. Is that true?
It got rolled into the next project.
We're hoping to do it in the next, okay.
It was punted.
It was punted, okay. So it was punted because we were concerned about costs and it was stuff that could go downhill. So, but if you read Article 7 and what the voters actually voted on, we don't discuss greenhouse gases in there at all. I don't disagree that they're important, but we did not propose that to the voters. It was not covered by the voters. I then went back and looked at all the slides we presented for informational at the town meeting. And we did not talk about the greenhouse gas goals for this. We discussed about the reliability of the plant, the cost of the plant, and everything else. And as a matter of fact, if you look at, and again, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to just highlight, slide 49 was the final slide, and that was the conclusion. And it said, state and federally funded grant and loan forgiveness programs require community support for eligibility. And that has 3 bullet points. Community support is demonstrated through a bond vote. Bond vote will help leverage additional state and federal funds. The goal is to reduce the cost to the residents. It's what we told the voters. I understand the greenhouse gas emissions are important. I got kids of my own. But at the end of the day, that's what we told the voters on town meeting. That we were going to do this project as cost effectively as possible. And picking a more expensive option, in my opinion, is not doing what we told the voters we were going to do when we sold the project to the voters. And I just think that's a very important consideration before you vote tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Anyone else who's not on the select board who would like to speak this evening on this topic? Laura.
Laura Certainly, former Energy Committee member and certainly longtime concern about climate change, which you know well. So I'm not going to repeat that. And I appreciate what Jeremy just said. And I do think I read in the documentation that going electric might actually reduce maintenance costs or make it simpler for operation. Is that true?
I'd ask the engineers.
So I can speak to that slightly. So it's included.
Could
in
you
the
please come to the
packet.
mic? Sorry.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
So it's actually in the packet because there was a discrepancy between, so I believe, Mike, you talked with the manufacturer's sales representative, not with someone who actually works for BCR. So we got different answers. We emailed Amy the title, the
Senior Manager of Applications Engineering.
Senior Manager of Applications Engineering with BCR. So a BCR employee versus someone who, manufacturers reps, they very knowledgeable. It's not to, I know my case well. But so we included in the packet their direct responses. That was the word for word copy paste into our presentation before were the words directly from BCR. So when it said more costly, more lead times, that was directly from BCR. And because we don't make equipment, we're engineers who implement it, we have to rely on that information. So
Thanks.
That was the gist of it.
Can I talk?
No.
Okay, forget it. It's in the weeds. I'll let it go.
Okay, anyway, my experience with an electric car, less maintenance, so I'm just thinking, okay, it could translate that way for the plant, so that could be less burden on staff, not more burden on staff. I think about that, and I think about the diligence of anticipating rising gas costs and interruptions in fuel supply as being true to the comment that Jeremy just made in being as cost conscious as possible. If you consider the future costs, and I know it's future, but I think it's real, and that we should definitely weigh that in making this decision. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thanks, Tom. A new voice in the back. Come on down. Holding up, everyone. Okay. Welcome.
Hi, Molly Anderson. Thank you very much for opening this discussion and allowing people to talk. We have been bandying around a lot of language about cost, and there are so many different kinds of costs that we need to differentiate. There's financial cost, and that's the main thing that concerns many people in this room, I think, and perhaps the main thing that concerns some residents in Middlebury, but there are also huge human costs of climate change. We've already seen many of those. That's been mentioned before, but the loss of biodiversity, the loss of a habitable planet, and I'm not exaggerating. This is what the climate scientists are telling us, that this is the trajectory that we are on. And I speak as a scientist, as an ecologist by training. This is the path that we're headed to. I really want the select board to act with vision, to act with a vision of the kind of Middlebury that we want for the future, and to preserve the environment that we love to the extent that we can. I'm afraid much of it is already lost because of the decisions that have already been made. I'm not pointing fingers at you folks, but we collectively, my generation, squandered a lot of capital, and we won't regain that. But this is a small place where we can regain some capital. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Dylan Voorhees. As you know, I'm on the Energy Committee, but speaking here for myself, I think you've heard a lot of the considerations about electric, about the greenhouse gas choices here, and I think those are important. I don't have a lot to add about that. I think you have enough evidence before you to proceed to investigate further the electric option. I'm interested in the conclusions that Emily brought. I would love confirmation that the state's clean water policy would force us somehow to choose a fossil fuel plant. That would be too bad if that was true and we were able to confirm that. But my larger point really is about decision making and governance, because that's what I care about. In addition to working on climate, and through my professional life, I've worked with state and local governments, and I believe in good governance. And it's clear to me, and you all know that you do imperfect decision making all the time. That's the real world. But it's clear to me that there's been a sort of a failure of decision making framework to this point. Maybe going back to the bond warrant, right? Maybe we didn't ask the right questions. But I definitely think we did not ask the Infrastructure Committee, right, Pierce, to consider the full scope of greenhouse gas policy implications. You didn't ask that, and so you're now struggling to make decisions based on that because that wasn't part of the decision-making process. And so I want to echo the recommendation that somebody made earlier, that if you decide you want to go forward with the gas plan, that you acknowledge that means setting aside the town's policy commitments toward reducing greenhouse gases by 80%. I think that's just that would include the integrity of that decision making and the concerns that folks have. And that's all I guess I want to say, is that I think that those decisions go together, and encourage you to make that part of your good governance and transparency. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, going down on 9:30. Any other comments? All right, I'll turn to the select board. Fred.
First, to the staff and their concern about I certainly hope that the facility will have its electrical equipment, its circuit breakers, its switch gear, all of the key spare parts that would be robust, that would be on the shelf. So we're not, whatever we do, we're not worried about, oh, can we get this part in this part of New England, or is it available at all? I think that ought to be taken off the table. We should assure ourselves that we're going to do something that's robust and high quality and reliable. Second, I am troubled that, well, if I had my druthers, I honestly, given the long-term unpredictability of gas versus electric, I would, maybe it's too late to do this, but I would design something that has the capability of switching. As Emily likes to say, having redundancy, having another way to solve something. And there are dual fuel applications that can, it's not rocket science. My own hot water heating system has solar, the fuel oil system from the original house, and electric. And, to be able to choose if the price of natural gas went up suddenly, or if there was an interruption, instead of the emergency generators, you switch from the electric to the natural gas, or you can use the electric in off-peak hour first, or if the town chooses to use it for. There's also more different types of electrical energy sourcing out there than there would be for natural gas. But the biggest thing that bothers me is that the waste heat. We're going to be buying millions of dollars worth of heat to dry this sludge, and the engineering piece of this that pulls a talking about as cost here, is being able to reuse and sell that waste heat in the thermal energy network to reduce the cost, operating cost of the plant, or offset that cost. And with natural gas, you know, a fair amount of that heat goes up the stack. And I did ask a brief question about this of Jenny Oster in the infrastructure meeting, and she said that, well, it is true that an electric fluid heating system is easier to capture the latent heat from than the natural gas one. And just my experience with the superior heat recovery that electric elements have and fluid heating in my own system, and the improved efficiency of electric fluid heating or other sources of electric fluid heating. I think I understand that there's another wastewater plant that has this that seems daunting, but our wastewater facility has all sorts of new electrical equipment, electrical control equipment, because beyond this sludge drying, there's the need to condense that stinky air that you baked all the moisture out of sludge, and then air scrubbers to handle that. There's even more energy systems involved in this. And to me, to do the complete 20-year life cycle cost is something you need to consider. Recapture the heat. Are you going to, what about these other new systems? And all of those systems are subjected to the same caustic environment that the wastewater treatment plant has, so they all will need to be robust no matter what we do. So I just think that I just don't feel ready to answer all of the questions of that, and I do think that the cost factors and the grant funds are important. I look at that list of CLSRF things and I wonder, how did Londonderry get $12 million for a green project? What do they do to make it green? I think there's more that we do need to do to look at the cost piece of this. And I hope that the waste heat engineering piece would not be deferred, but integrated. Just like when you're building a house, you think about insulating it, not leave it as an afterthought. Thank you, everybody, for all the work you've done.
Danielle, if I'm going around soliciting select board thoughts, you're next.
This has been quite a couple of weeks, talking to all sorts of different people on all sorts of sides of this subject. I really appreciate everybody who took the time to offer me their perspective and educate me on what they've found. At the end of the day, it's hard not to look at this from my experience as a restaurant owner, touring the wastewater facility. I'm seeing just things set up similarly to how we have to sort of set things up and behind the scenes sometimes just to make them run. We have to have, parts on the shelf to make sure that if it breaks down, we're not losing business as a result. But in addition to that, being a restaurant owner, I'm also, I have a philosophical ethos that I'm also beholden to my staff and the guests that come in, and that is the future and how we contribute to that through what we do on a day-to-day and how we do it. So I agree with Fred. I wish there was time to kind of explore more. I did find it kind of ironic what the concerns were, where those points were going to affect us in the bond, but I just think it's really important that we make sure that we make these decisions that are going to contribute to the future of Middlebury long-term. Hopefully long-term.
Thanks, Danielle. Farhad, thoughts?
Yes, I'm as conflicted as I was when I came to this meeting this afternoon. I agree 100% with the Energy Committee. I'm 100% behind you, but I'm also 100% behind the town staff. I take exception to the comment that that gentleman made about this being a very simple decision. It's not. The cost of somebody who lives paycheck to paycheck is very, very important to consider, right? I have employees who make minimum wage, who may not be able to afford electric for any, I'm not talking about this wastewater thing. So we have to not dismiss things that we have to acknowledge, you know. For us to bring forward our point, we have to acknowledge that there is the other side of the story also. Having said that, I don't know if we have more time. I don't think we do, right?
Not from what we were told, not from what's in front of us.
Okay. So
Nothing's gonna change.
I'm with Fred on this one also. I wish we can find another way to save the greenhouse thing.
Yeah, I also really appreciate everybody's perspective, and it's been a really enlightening and emotional discussion, and I appreciate everybody who's really put their heart into presenting the information on this topic. I also feel conflicted, and I feel like Fred and Danielle and Farhad, like I wish we could have a system where we could switch real quick to a different energy. I really trust our town staff and their comfort and their experience and their knowledge of the system. I also think that cost of living is a big issue, especially given the discussion we had just earlier tonight about CHIP and how that's going to affect us, and difficult discussions we had during our budget season, significant cuts we had to make to the budget. I'm nervous about picking a more expensive option. And I think Jeremy made a really good point about what we presented to the voters when they passed this in the first place. But I also think that Mr. Fader made a good point about the goals and acknowledging, if we are going to go with gas, I think it is really important that we acknowledge that this changes the goals that we set out. I also took away from this discussion that the goals are, I'm not entirely clear on what the goals mean, and I think that it would be good to have a more explicit set of goals for ourselves that we can. I want to know more about the goals, and I want to know exactly, like, are we able to meet these goals? Will we ever be able to meet these goals? Can we set goals that we can really meet, given the very difficult times that we are finding ourselves in, and the very difficult decisions that we have to make, and the very real people who have to pay for everything in this town. So. Yeah, I guess that's where I'm at.
Thanks, Mary. Ms. Gogarty.
Yeah, so I have really appreciated the opportunity to, dive into something that I think a lot of young people are really talking about, is thinking about the environmental considerations and then also the cost of living. I mean, when I think about rent increases, my rent being increased $100
is pretty detrimental to my budget as a 20-year-old. So it has been really difficult to make a decision where I think both of these things exist as priorities for me. But when I am talking with people who don't have the privilege to be here, I do hear affordability as the number one concern. So that led me to really thinking about, how do I defend a decision to go with natural gas, which is where I'm at right now. And when I look back at the minutes from decisions to go with the goal, it was really framed then as a goal and not as a commitment. And I do feel like a lot of this past couple days is trying to really think about how I would explain it to voters, the decision that I made, and looking at communities that have gone with affordability because the infrastructure isn't there yet. So I do feel confident that I can go to voters and explain why I chose an affordable option over the environmental option as it stands right now. It doesn't feel good, but I find myself being able to do that with this choice.
Thanks, Izzy. Dan, I assume you have thoughts?
Yeah, I do. Let's see if I can articulate them. Before the meeting, I had written down what my thoughts were. And sitting up here is different than sitting out there. Sitting up here is different than being on a committee and voting and sending it up to us. And the information that we've seen is the electrical costs some X amount of dollars to more, that the Clean Water State Revolving Fund is in jeopardy. So we're talking about what we think the future is going to be with gas and electric costs and everything, but we're also looking at a real closer future. What's the risk at losing this revolving fund, and then possibly not even be able to afford this system? I had a couple other things, but I'm going to skip to the things that currently came up. I really appreciate the thought process that went into the infrastructure committee, what I said on, and what I saw the energy committee do over the last several weeks. And I've read everything, I understand everything, I have a heart in one place. And the part I want to talk about before I'll tell you why my final decision is a lot of the stuff that was set up here tonight was technical and wonderful and everything. I also felt that there might have been a lot of shaming going on, that somebody was trying to shame me into voting. I heard questions of my failure of leadership if I don't vote in one way. I feel I can shame myself enough and feel difficult and conflicted with this, but it bothers me that the citizens are coming up here and trying to shame me, and I'm not doing my job when I'm sitting up here. Because this is not an easy place to be, and you particularly don't want to be sitting in this seat this night, because this just is difficult. We don't make these decisions lightly. So when we talk about going back to the failure of leadership, my other reasons that are listed here is Wright Pierce, our architects, have recommended the gas. The town staff, who've done an outstanding job in working with us, Emily is I think consumed completely by this right now. You don't think so?
She's got so much going on. Are you kidding?
They're going to maybe start filling the water tank here that she'll be happy with. But the staff has done all the things. So Emily supports this. She's brought in the current operating staff. They support gas. Jeremy, who's is a superstar, and he supports gas. I've talked to 2 other engineers in my church who've designed these systems and built these systems and actually troubleshot these systems, and they support gas. So who am I failing if I don't pick the gas? I'm failing the people that I'm working, the entire town staff. What position does that put me in a leader of this town with his staff? And I, by the way, I appreciate all the work that's been done, and I appreciate the staff, and I really need to support the staff, and I really am going to have to vote for gas. And it hurts me to do that because I drive a plug-in electric car, I have 15 solar panels. I understand, but I have, in my leadership position here, I have to support the rest of the community, the cost of this, the difficulty of paying for this, the jeopardy that we're putting our funding sources in for this, and that's what I have to do.
Thanks, Dan.
Yep.
I guess I'm the 7th member. Yeah, it was suggested that CHIP is dangerous because it can be a slush fund for select boards and city councils. I wish we had a slush fund, right? We passed a bond for the estimated cost of this project, and we did not inflate it so that we could make mistakes. We had the contingency amounts in there, which we will probably run through as we did with the library. This is a more expensive version in capital upfront, which we don't have in this project, in operating expense, which we don't have. I really resonated with Izzy talking about the folks that aren't in this room. Up here on this side of things, we are responsible for considering all of the residents, not those who have the time and inclination to be here on a Tuesday evening. When I moved to Middlebury 12 years ago, I discovered to my shock and horror that it was the town with the highest Gini coefficient at the time. For those of you who don't know, that means that it had the greatest income inequality of any town in Vermont as measured at that time. There are a lot of people in our town who are not here tonight. This is a very important decision. I've, as I mentioned to Richard, always been skeptical of this 80% potential, but I feel compelled to choose the natural gas option at this time. Okay. Already on the record, are there any other comments before we have a motion? Hearing none. I don't know, is there a motion? I don't know how this works.
You have it up. Somebody have it up.
I have a motion.
Okay.
I'll move to support the continuation of the design of the town of Middlebury's wastewater treatment facility project with a gas-powered BCR bioscrewdriver.
Moved.
Second.
Seconded. Those in favor, please indicate. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, Danielle.
What?
Fred.
Fred voted again?
Yeah.
All right. Motion passes.
Oh, he voted against it.
I saw that.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
What's that?
I said leadership. Those hearings voted, if you believe that what they should be also the goal of the consequence. So leadership includes being honest about interpretation.
Okay.
That's all.
That's
right there.
fair. Yeah.
And I thought I could have to say, I could easily see
There were a lot of words, yeah, and I'm sorry if,
Right, I mean,
yeah.
I was not accusing you.
That's okay.
Your brother,
That's okay. That's okay. You know, the one thing that, you didn't talk about, those goals we set, we've actually haven't, I think we're not only not meeting, they're not even coming, our performance is not even coming down. It's going up. And we're not making any headway, and the only headway we've ever made is through GMP.
All right, general people, it's 10 of 10 on Tuesday night. Yeah, we are. Let me try to find the agenda. Number 8, agenda number 8, the Ilsley Public Library Departmental Update Presentation to the Select Board. Dana is already here.
Oh,
She's already joined us.
Gosh.
Oh no!
Hi, Dana.
Hi, everyone.
How much of that did you enjoy?
I've been on since about 8, so I have learned a lot.
I bet you have. We all have.
Congratulations on making it to a vote and making a tough decision. Not an easy job you guys have, but well done.
Yeah, the library's in that mix of why we made the decision too. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, hopefully we can transition to some more upbeat.
You are everything you're doing is positive.
A project that's on the other end of the continuation of funding and the construction, and now we're at the move-in point. So yeah, I know typically for these regular updates we try and do more of an overview of what's going on in our department, and typically I'd be sharing information on all the great services and programs and resources we provide, but right now it is hard to untangle our operations from the renovation expansion project, which is wrapping up. We got our conditional certificate of occupancy last week, so we can start moving in. And we have started moving in. The new shelving arrived last week. It looks great. It's fantastic. The furniture is going in this week. Meanwhile, REAR continues to work with their trade partners to wrap up construction, and punch lists are being generated and then being punched as we go. We're still planning on having our grand opening on August 29th. There's a lot going on between now and then. So next week we start moving the books. So we start the relocation in earnest. We hired Meyer Inc. again, and I did a walkthrough with their crew earlier this week. So they'll be coming back to Middlebury to move the books back into the new building. It'll take a couple weeks. It'll go slower this time around because we need to interfile 2 collections in 2 separate locations back into one. So that's a little bit more of a complicated move, but that'll get underway. Hopefully next week we'll be opening up the upper parking lot again. I know that is a question you guys probably get asked all the time. So it's been a long process, and I really appreciate everyone's patience. I do think it should be open end of next week. The fencing will come down, and I'll work with you, David, to make sure we send out an email blast to the town reminding everyone, just because the upper parking lot is open, please, drive in slowly and carefully, because there still are going to be work vehicles and moving trucks and stuff like that over the coming weeks. But that should be opening up soon.
Great.
We are going to have a book cart parade on August 6th from 4 to 5 p.m. So a small part of the collection in the Duclos building is going to get rolled down Main Street on book carts by volunteers. And so that is really exciting, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be a great community event coinciding with the Thursday evening market. So that'll be really, I think, an exciting moment for the community and the books. Our last day in the Duclos building will be August 8th. At that point, after we close the Duclos building to the public, we cannot accept returns. Please spread the word. People should keep their books for the month of August. We will update our system so people do not get, reminders to return their stuff. Nothing will be overdue, but we can't accept returns when we have no beneficial. So there'll be a few week period where we can't take returns. We will offer extended hours out in Sarah Partridge, our branch library, so you can still get your books out there. There will be some great programs, and we'll be open 6 days a week out there while we're doing the move.
Dana, do you have all the volunteers you need for your book parade?
Ilsley 100 is going to be driving.
You can join us.
My kids are doing it.
Okay, I guess you do.
I've been overwhelmed in the best sense by the response to our call for volunteers.
Great.
We have started turning volunteers away, sadly, because so many people
come with us.
All right.
participate, which is really great. It's very heartwarming and a great mix of volunteers, all ages. So that's really fun.
Dana,
Yeah, so that'll be great.
do you want balloons or no?
So the grand opening part, I know I owe you an email. It's in my head and I'm gonna do it, but I really want balloons for the grand opening, so I will email you.
Okay, but you don't need anything for the book parade?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Just want to make sure.
Thank you so much for offering. So as we wrap up our stay in the Do Close building, which has just been fantastic, we're going to be issuing a special impact report that will cover the library's time in that building, sort of saying thank you and paying tribute to the National Bank of Middlebury, what great partners they've been, and just highlighting all the great services we've been able to provide to the community because of their generosity. So that should be coming out mid next week, like next week.
Wow.
Let's see, what else had I written down? A few weeks of moving, we'll have our grand opening on the 29th. That'll be a really great event. We'll start promoting that pretty soon. And then we'll be open for business the following Monday. So we are fully staffed. We're gonna go back to our old hours. So 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4 on Fridays, and 9 to 4 on Saturdays. So we'll be extending our hours significantly from what they've been the past year and a half, which is really exciting. We have new booking software for all of our public spaces, which will go live probably in the next 2 weeks. For the time being, if community members want to reserve any of the new community rooms in the new library, they can just email me and I can enter it manually. We've had a lot of people reaching out with interest already for September and October, so our calendar is filling up, which is just so exciting and awesome. And I'll be focusing on closing out our storage space in Virgins and cleaning up the rental space in the National Bank of Middlebury, hoping to get those closed up by the end of August, first week of September at the latest. So, and then in the fall, we'll be settling in, loving our new space, hopefully offering lots of exciting new programs, building our collection back up again. And then the trustees are gonna start thinking about our next strategic planning session. We had a bridge plan that covered 4 years, which expires in 2027. So we'll have to start a new strategic planning process, and the timing is great. We'll have this great new building and hopefully a lot of community interest, people that want to participate in that process.
Fantastic.
So I'm happy to answer questions or talk about anything about the library that you guys have on your mind.
And we have our last Ilsley 100 meeting coming up.
Wow.
Yes.
The last of the,
Yes.
It's been
The Ilsley 100 projects team will be meeting for their final symbolic meeting. They have brought the project to fruition.
In the library.
And we'll be celebrating that.
Over 3 years, yeah.
over 3 years.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
I have a question.
Hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
My question is, and maybe you don't know it, I'm just curious what's gonna become of what the bank is doing with the space after Mini Ilsley leaves. Do you know?
I have an inkling, but I'll let the bank share that with the community.
Okay.
I have an idea. I believe there's other community partners that will move in and use the space, but I don't know the details and I don't know.
So it's not just gonna go back to being a bank lobby?
I'm pretty sure I can say no. I don't think there's plans to do that.
It was like where you get your mortgage.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It looked really good.
Yeah.
Looked really good.
Nice desks, for sure.
No,
I like the posters.
Heather, do you have a comment for Dana?
Yeah, I know it's really late, so I'll just keep it really brief. I have thoroughly enjoyed Mini Ilsley at the Duclos building as a resident. And I just hope the select board would come up with some way I know maybe Dana's already thought about it, but I just really wish you would do something special for the National Bank of Middlebury. And I know the report Dana's talking about, but a board resolution probably isn't, nothing you could probably come up with would be enough. But it has been so huge
Yep.
to keep that space in the downtown, and it was such a lovely space, and it was so awesome to go there and visit. I just would hope you'd think about some way of acknowledging and recognizing the National Bank of Middlebury, maybe even a plaque in the new building. I don't know, think about it, just please think about it.
Great, thank you.
Pizza party and balloons.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments for Dana? Thanks so much. We're a little bit spent, Dana. I'm sure I would have something else to add.
You guys are hanging in there, so
That's it, exactly.
My hat is off to you, and thank you for giving me the time to talk, and thank you to Heather and Laura for sticking around. That's really nice. I appreciate that.
She missed you, Jeff. You're on.
Jeff's here too.
One other person's here.
Oh, someone else is there. Sorry, it's kind of like a weird fisheye angle. I can't see everyone.
But he's asleep, so it doesn't count.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Dana.
Thanks, Dana.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. On to, I think, our last agenda item of the evening.
I can't find it.
Town encampment policy, proposed reforms, item 9.
So we also need to say thank you to Susan from John Graham Housing, who has hung on.
Wow. Thank you, Susan.
When I told her 8:30,
oh dear. Now that was overly optimistic.
Just slightly overly
David.
optimistic at our times here.
Oh
so,
dear.
Thank you, Susan.
And welcome.
Aspirational time setting. There she is.
Yeah.
So I'll try to be quick about this. So we have an item before us that has kind of the byproduct of some continued conversations about this encampment policy. We adopted this in the spring of 25 after quite a bit of discussion. We've been supervising this policy for about 1.5 years with Charterhouse, with John Graham, with CSAC at times. We have received about 17 reported encampments, 15 of which were on town property. The basic rules we set up were still pretty simple. I know the MOU and the policy is a little long, but it basically can boil down to there were certain town-owned parcels where encampments were just not going to be allowed, and other parcels, it would be a case-by-case basis depending on the facts of what was going on there. And as the reports have come in, some come from staff who happen to be out doing their job, some come from the public. We check out the land, we see who owns it, and then we have coordinated each time with Charterhouse and CSAC. And I could say the vast majority of the time when it's on a location that's not allowed, the folks who have been occupying the encampments have removed them very quickly. So in that sense, it has worked quite well. There have been a handful of cases, however, where folks have utilized the full time that the rules allowed. The Selectboard, you might remember, tried to lead with a service front approach to this, not having the police be the folks on the scene initially. We also provided a very extensive time period for folks to, after their initial outreach, before a notice to vacate is issued by the town, and then a period of time between notice to vacate to when, unfortunately, it may have to be enforced. That's about 2 months, and you saw an example recently where that full time period was taken. What we're proposing here is for those instances where an encampment's on a location that's not allowed, that time frame would be shrunk down. It would go essentially to between the initial outreach by Charterhouse, who does most of the work on the front line, to the notice to vacate would be a week, and then there'd be 3 weeks between that and enforcement. So we're shrinking it down by over 50% in the timeline. It still provides time for outreach, it still provides time for sharing of service options, but in those instances where encampment's on a parcel that's simply not allowed, this would allow us to resolve it faster. That's the gist of this.
Thanks, David.
Yeah.
Has the local business owners who have been affected by this, are they involved in?
I think the sentiment, they have not specifically been involved in the drafting of this proposal, but I think the sentiment that we've heard over the last year and a half from some of those local business
I'm
owners.
especially
And
thinking about Mr. Ops, who
Yeah.
had a.
I think the idea is,
They were very distressed about this.
I think the idea is that if the town has designated a particular parcel as being off limits, 2 months is maybe too much time before you step in. And I think that's the reflection of that sentiment, and also balancing still a desire to have a humane approach to this. We're not going to go in and remove somebody the next day, but this would shrink that timeline down a fair amount. Susan, anything to add to that?
Just add, hi everybody.
Hi there.
Just add that we have been in consultation with the town about this shift to shorten the time. And both Charterhouse and John Graham, I am also the chair of the Addison County Housing Coalition as well, which is primarily composed of all the service providers in the county. And we're in agreement that this is a reasonable shift. We do think that people who are willing to accept services and accept help in relocating, whether they're going into shelter or choosing another option, that doesn't change much over the last month. And this would provide a quicker turnaround in terms of lessening the impact on businesses that may be impacted, businesses in particular, that may be impacted by the presence of an encampment in an unauthorized area. So we also feel very grateful that the town has continued to be in contact with us about what is the trauma-informed approach to dealing with this difficult situation, and how to keep people in connected with the service providers, and allowing the service providers, Charterhouse in particular, and the outreach team to make contact and make multiple contacts before enforcement happens. So, but we do feel that this is a reasonable shift, because otherwise it's a lot of sitting on our hands. So.
Thanks, Susan. I am so grateful for the memorandum of understanding and that this process has worked between the town and the various service providers to really meet people where they are and give them time, hopefully, to find better options than encamping in difficult locations on municipal property.
I would also add that the police department also has been incredibly cooperative, and we've been working as a team in these situations, and that's just such a gift. It doesn't exist in every community.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I move to approve, is it time?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
It's 10:10.
I move to approve the proposed changes to the town encampment policy and authorize the town manager to enter into the revised memorandum of understanding with the Charterhouse Coalition.
I'm going to take the second, but we have a hand up from someone online. Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, my name is Bridget Goslin, and I really appreciate you taking time to let me speak. I am a member of the town. I own property across the river from Mr. Epps, actually on the corner of South Pleasant Street and the bridge, the cross street bridge. I've unfortunately noticed that the encampment under this side of the bridge has grown since the encampment under the side of the bridge next to Mr. Epps has decreased, and that there have been an increase in concerning activities starting in about April, when I was 3 months, or when I was in my third trimester of pregnancy. During that time, I witnessed 3 men chasing a man with a hammer, crossing the bridge and into the road in front of my house, stopping traffic, screaming racial slurs, and also threatening to hang the man with the hammer. I've also witnessed men parking on South Pleasant Street and meeting up on the corner and then traveling underneath the bridge and hanging out under the bridge for several hours, and then returning to their vehicles and leaving day after day. I noticed in the document that you're moving to approve that public land is well protected, but areas like the bridge, on this side of the bridge that are adjacent to private land, may not be. And so I would implore people to explore that, because it feels like families like mine, I have 2 young children who cannot even play in their backyard anymore because of this encampment. We're shouldering the burden of these encampments more than other community members. So I just would ask that to be taken into consideration.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention. I really appreciate it, Bridget. Have you contacted the police about trespass notice?
I have, unfortunately, they are using, they're using they have a pathway that is close enough to the bridge that it is town property. So it's adjacent to my property, but it is technically town property.
Okay.
You ever heard anything? I've never. Do you guys know about an encampment under there?
I was aware that there were some folks on that side of the river, but we haven't heard any complaints. None that have made it to my desk anyway.
Okay.
I think they have.
Now.
Yeah.
Until now.
Yep.
Bridget, I appreciate this. It's now on all of our plates. I'm not sure when we'll circle around and think about this, but we will. Yeah, and I'm sorry that your response was what it was, and that yeah, we weren't aware of it sooner.
Say too, if we can just make sure that that location is communicated to Chelsea at Charter House, to the outreach team, so that we can then talk about it. But I just want to make sure the exact location gets communicated, because I'm not familiar with it.
It's the corner of South Pleasant Street and the Cross Street Bridge. If you go under the bridge, you will see, or not even under the bridge, if you look at the corner, you will see a trail leading underneath the bridge.
Okay.
Brittany, I don't think we can offer you much in the way of solutions this evening, but I appreciate you bringing this to our attention.
Thank you. I appreciate you listening and considering my complaint.
Of course.
Okay.
Laura?
I know that path.
Yeah, me too.
And I have to tell you, I gasped when I saw the rocks and the chain link fence. Like, it felt very hostile to me. I really didn't know, I just need to say that, and I understand the deterrence of that, but it feels bad.
Yep.
But somebody who doesn't know the circumstances, it's not going to look bad at all. So if anybody coming to town or looking at that, it just looks like rocks. It looks like, I mean,
but
I don't know.
But we know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know.
I don't know, it just doesn't set well with me. I'm just saying that.
No,
and,
sure.
and that I know this path might be blocked in a similar way, maybe, and people are trying to find a place to go, and there are very limited options, and we're scattering them, and we know that that's dangerous too.
Sure.
And we know that creates even more violence between those campers.
I think there's two sides to this. I know it's very unfortunate that people are in a situation where they don't have a place to go, but also there are people who want to live peacefully,
people who want to run their business peacefully, and it's not an easy thing, but we have both sides.
I know, but I keep asking myself, where can we direct them? You know, and I know that the answer is to have the outreach, but you have to find them too and reach them. And that was a very convenient place to do the outreach. And now it makes it harder for those agencies to do the outreach.
Yeah.
So you're saying it was a good place to put the people so you could do the outreach?
It actually was a concentrated place, you know, where the outreach could happen.
Yeah, but it was businesses down there,
It
people.
was not
and
getting better where Mr.
Yeah.
Huff's was. It was not getting better for Mr. Huff's business.
It's a dilemma, like,
Yeah.
it's just,
Certainly.
it's a dilemma.
Yes.
And I understand it. It was shocking.
Agreed. I shared strong and mixed feelings about that deterrent effect.
It remains a painful situation.
Yeah.
What's that? I'm sorry, say it again?
I just said it remains a painful situation.
It is, yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
for
thank
sure.
you.
All right. Other comments, concerns, questions? There's a motion and a second. Danielle is drawing in the air. We've reached some point of crazy hour here. All in favor of the changes to these two documents, please indicate.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. We even got the two Zoom folks on this. All right. I think that was 7.
Yeah.
I believe we've reached the end of our agenda. Thank you, Laura.
Exhibit session.
I wish it was a snack. How did I not bring snacks?
I
I'm accepting very brief select board member concerns. I'm going to start back here with Fred. Oh,
Thank you.
yeah.
you so
Hi, good night. Fred?
Too late. It's too late.
Fair enough. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the boat. Danielle?
Thank you.
Done.
Nope, just thanks to everybody.
Thanks for,
Yeah.
thanks for you two to call in.
Absolutely.
Yes, thanks for.
It's good to have the whole team here, for sure. Farhad?
one of the most difficult meetings today, I think.
Yep.
So I'm glad we made it.
Same.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I think regardless of how individuals voted, it really felt like all of us versus a problem, which I have loved that about this board is it
We were united.
almost never feels like personal politics, which is very different than I think some other boards. So
Oh, indeed.
it's great.
Yes.
When I made my comments about looking back at the decision that they made a few years ago, obviously I wasn't on the select board at the time, but Andy has shared this resource called Local Minutes.
Yes.
And that came
Good
in
stuff.
really handy because I quite literally asked Local Minutes, like, walk me through the decision. Was it a mandate? You know, what were the other select board perspectives? So it was a really great resource that I used to kind of ground myself in.
Nice.
Is this mandate or?
Yeah, as AI powered tools go, it's one of the better ones.
Yeah.
What is it called?
It's called Local
Localminutes.org.
Minutes.
And it's a collection of basically all of the digitized minutes across Vermont.
So you can say, tell me about communities who are having ongoing debates about their environmental goals or mandates or whatever you want
Right.
to call them, and you can see it's happening in many towns and seeing how they deal
You
with
can
it.
check
Yeah.
out select board attendance too.
Or other committees.
Other committees,
Yeah. Thanks, is it Dan?
No,
you're just gonna, yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah, fair enough. I was concerned at our last meeting when we pushed this off for 2 weeks that we were just kind of spinning our wheels, and I
think that time was really useful.
I agree 100%.
I think the decision would have been easier last time.
Sure. Yeah, that may well be, but I think it was time well spent,
Yes.
and I am grateful for that result at this point. Anyway, motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Move.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Good night, guys. Thanks.